measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If Earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken. We just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat Earth king of rhyme.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Sven P, Curved Fart, Pablo de la Cruz, Smith Tools and Purchase, A Level Plain Poem, Vitali Z, Colton James, Survive the Spin, Thomas van der Zander, Measured Flat, Tiers Morgan, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, The Name's Burley, J Mails 24, Unamento, Iron 26, Retro Bill, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Texas Mike, Chow Young Cat, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Links, as I say, to Patreon are below this video. But with that, I will hand across to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
You all right, Neil?
My man, architect of our existence.
Or did you listen to that song then, dude?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you'll have found that being a Christian, but that was my way of thinking from about 14 years ago.
Yeah, of course. We all did. The way I was thinking when I was 15, 16, 17, even when I was 30 is totally different now. It's a cool title, though. I like it. And in essence, it's correct. We are the architects of our existence. Or maybe that's wrong. Where we build where we're going to go, where we're going to spend eternity. I can agree with that.
But the main thing I liked about that was take responsibility for who we are. Like, deal with your own shit kind of thing. That's the main thing I liked about that speech.
Yeah, of course. Everybody wants to blame everybody else. But nobody wants to take accountability. I do. Hey. Why I'm 61 and struggling is my own fault. I messed up all those early years, you know? I wasn't smart. I should have joined the union when my father was telling me to join the union, you know what I mean? I made a lot of freaking things I wish I could do over. But I don't blame anybody but myself. No, it's the system. It's the thinking system of the you-know-who. Yeah. Still responsible.
I just dropped my phone and shattered my screen.
Oh, no.
Lovely.
Oh, man.
That's heartbreaking.
I only buy second-hand phones for that reason, because I don't want to drop £1,000 bloody phone and be pissed off. So it was about time I got a new one anyway. I've had this about 5-6 years.
Oh, that's not bad at all then. That's fair enough. Yeah, I feel that's bad.
Broke mine a year into my new one that I swore when I got it. I said, I'm not going to drop this phone. I'm going to be mindful. I dropped this phone more than any other phone.
Yeah. I've never suffered that loss, but that's all Craig on Click OK's icon doing all day. Swapping out people's phone screens and laptop screens and laptop hinges and obviously amongst other things.
You know what it is? like you could drop it, it'll go straight down on the screen, nothing will happen. But if it falls and it like hits anything that's not soft, the right corner, it's all over. And that's how I cracked the screen. Just fell awkwardly and in front of my backyard entrance where we come in, there's gravel, like little pebbles. And it hit this one pebble just at the right spot and cracked my screen.
Yeah, I cracked the iPad screen that I use a couple of months after getting it, and knowing full well that if you take the screen out and replace it, it just never quite works the same. I decided to just fill it with super glue, and it's been like that ever since. I think I've had it for about 5 years. 5 years.
Well, like I put that screen protector when they got their phones. A couple of them got it for Christmas. I put that screen protector on. Every one of my family's phones are cracked, but it's the screen protector. I'm the only one that didn't get it, so I paid the price. What are you going to do?
Speaking of which, what are we going to do? What are we going to do today?
Wait. You said something that if you replace the screen, it never works, correct? Is that true?
I mean, I've had several iPads that have had replacement screens, and they just never quite work the same. Just one of those things. It's never going to be the same as being, whatever, hermetically sealed to the chassis in an iPad factory when they're made like that. You know, as good a job as you can do, it's never going to quite be the same as when it's original.
Well, today what we're going to do is, I don't know. You see what I put in Master B?
No.
There's more screaming from the sidelines to release the tapes. And I guess that's what a certain show is going to be on today, releasing the tapes.
Couldn't give a shit. Yeah, from what I understand, people who've thieved from you suddenly become obsessed with you, presumably out of need for defence. Well, I don't need to defend anything, so I don't need to make any demands of anybody. What would the tapes, what of me recording them working under my guidance, prove? Well, they worked under my guidance. Therefore, they're justified in stealing from me. That's what they want to release the tapes for. I couldn't give a shit what they want anymore. That's the reality.
So ignore the bastards.
Well, what a shock. They're now obsessed with me. Yeah, it's shocking. Like, you wanted to absorb my career for the last 12 years into a book that you stole from me. So why would I be in the slightest bit surprised that they're still obsessed with me? You want to be me. I get it.
I think there was one deck put a video that we can go over. I'm pretty sure I heard him say that yesterday. Let me check.
Okay. Hi, John.
Hey, what's going on?
What'd you say? What's cooking? I had a pot noodle.
They said, what's north?
Oh, what's north? I know, everyone's
That's
feeling
not cooking.
Everyone's feeling a little south.
That video that one deck posted was from Blue Marble Science. I don't know if you want to cover him. You know who he is, right?
Yeah. Not especially. I mean, if you want to cover it, that's up to you. Do you want to cover it? Then you can be responsible for responding.
Oh, it's reciprocal zenith angles. What are we talking about? Angles?
I'll do what
Just
I did in
look
the
at-
chat yesterday when this came up. I went, okay, what's the rebuttal? Nobody responded.
The reciprocal zenith angles.
Yeah. I don't know
The
if I
zenith angle.
don't know if I should exclude you from answering. It's like calling the headmaster in to answer. But go ahead, John.
The zenith angle itself is a elevation angle of 90 degrees to GP. So that zenith requires a flat Earth. Why would they be using a zenith?
Hello, we all know this, so I don't know why they're doing it. You got to ask them.
Well, why didn't you answer? So how would you phrase the rebuttal, Neil?
Exactly the way John did. Move
Well,
on.
let's hear it then. You've rephrased what John
You
said.
need a flat Earth for it all. Any type of freaking zenith angles, reciprocal angles. Anytime you say angle, you're going to need a flat plane of reference to get it from. Oh, what do you want to hear?
Exactly that. I don't know why you're so stroppy.
Because I don't know why they keep doing these videos. It makes no sense. I don't know why people are so freaking gullible. It's getting frustrating now.
Okay. Maybe that's something we should cover on the show. Not reciprocals, any angles. The frustration with the idiots that we've talked to.
Why don't we just talk about the book and its comment and what the expectations are,
You can
and
do
how
that too
we're
if you
all
want.
excited about that.
You can do that too if you want.
I mean, there's no debate. The debate's over. There's no argument, right? The argument's over because there never was an argument. So what do we do now? We get together and let's talk about this book that's going to change the world.
I mean, I appreciate your high expectations. Flattering.
I think it'll do best after we're all dead and gone. It'll be like any other, piece of art.
Yep. I said that to my wife.
mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote it with that in mind. I'm like, that's exactly what I said to my wife. I'm like, yeah, don't necessarily expect this book to do well, but write it as though you're writing it for an audience member or a reader in 100 years from now. That's how I've literally phrased a lot of the rewrites and edits while we've been doing them. So it's like one of the chapters involved me describing a character who gets called Raven. And Raven joins in on one of the live stream chats. So she's watching the show, and as an audience member, she's in a chat. Now, when I say that, everyone here knows exactly what I am saying. Now imagine yourself 100 years from now, where YouTube doesn't exist, chat boxes don't exist, viewing as an audience member in front of a screen may not even exist. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to explain to my wife, no, I'm not just being awkward when I paraphrase this in such a bizarre way that's so sterilized and over generic, when I could just say, she's a live stream audience member and she's in the chat. You're like, what's chat? What does chat mean 50 years from now, let alone 100? Yeah. So don't get me wrong. There's certain sections that I know as a whole piece, it's going to be dated, right? Eventually everything dates. You can't escape entropy, and, ideas and literacy are in many ways still subject to the second law. I know in physical terms they're not. I'm just being pedantic, right? But my point is, it's going to date no matter what. So there's certain sections where you go, look, I'm going to allow this to be considered creative license if I have that mindset. In other words, I'm just going to phrase it the way that I phrase it as a man of my time. But there's other bits that I want to date well, like they're specific to the subject and the unpacking of a transition from heliocentrism to reality, or back to reality, right? As Marshall Mathers would say, right? So when you're snapping somebody back into that reality, you kind of want the phraseology to be timeless as much as possible. So if there's anything that, how can I put this? It harkens back to when I was training in performing arts, and there's a Birkhoff principle called alienation. I've spoken about it a few times previously, and I got caught up on it and told to study this based on my being too close to the audience during a performance. And I was pulled to one side afterwards. I'm like, told off essentially, although they don't necessarily tell you off in performing arts school. They just give you advice on how to do things better. And the advice I was getting was, you're too close to the audience. I'm like, what difference does it make? I want them to be quite close to me. I want them to really hear me saying the words in a low tone, and I say them quietly. And I don't want them to strain to hear that bit of dialogue. And the teacher was like, no, you need to read this book by Berkhoff. So I went and took it away. And the overarching principle he was explaining was that you can force the audience away from your message if you alienate them. And in this particular instance, the faux pas that I'd committed was being too close to the audience. In other words, you want to be able to look as an onlooker on a performance rather than feel like you're physically being dragged into it. And the dragged into it bit is the bit that alienates them from the performance and might make them like shift to the side slightly in their seat, which means that their suspension of disbelief is therefore put in jeopardy. That's the main point. If you alienate somebody, well, so what? Well, so what? The suspension of disbelief becomes more difficult, if that makes sense, right? So, why was I talking about this? I've completely forgotten why I was talking about alienating people. What was it we were talking about? Completely lost track of why that little amble.
Hold on a second. Dating my foot. There was no. All right, Picasso. Did he have the means?
Yes. Because
to
of the
promote
book.
his work.
Exactly. Because I look at it and go, there's a good chance this will be appreciated more after I've gone. So I want to retrospectively present the situation so it could be digested from somebody 10, 20, 30 years from now. And without being like so off-putting as to alienate the audience member because they're not necessarily familiar with the terms. Now, there's certain, the Newton letter to Bentley, for example, right? For me, it is such great an absurdity. There are certain elements of that letter that just resonate and are timeless. Other bits are just bad linguistically in modern times. Now, he's not thinking that when he's writing some bloke a letter. He's just moaning. That's all he's really doing, is moaning. But some of the language is timeless. And you kind of want to say, well, I'm telling a story. And I know that in literal terms, there are books that are out there that are old, that are on the subject that we still reference, only because they're still relevant. So there's certain things that I want to be still relevant. And in terms of that particular story, right, Edgar Raven and the story of transmissions between relays that are 20 miles apart and then hooking up to the original transceiver 110 miles away. I think I'd put it in the story as 100 miles. Creative license just to make it more easily digested with round numbers, right? But the main point is the end conclusion to that particular story. It's actually the very last chapter. It's one of the things. It's what I round out on, which is to say that as you've now understood the story, you've understood that what seems like of great importance 12 years ago in this story arc, where I'm being told about a geometric horizon not obscuring the view of these transmissions, you get to the end of the journey and go, the transmission distances are flat. The entire conversation becomes moot. But little did you know, when it seemed of great importance and you've only got one person watching, that you later interview and realise that the only reason you've only got one person in your audience is because that person's had the same epiphany as you, but it's already been brainwashed into them that they need to recognise where Earth curve isn't as part of that epiphany. It's like so controlled in terms of the narrative that I'm hoping that somebody will appreciate having read a book. So they get to the end and go, so even when people wake up and it seems to be grassroots and organic, the way you wake up to this is engineered such that you're criticising the ball faith that you're walking away from at all times, rather than just recognising God's beautiful flat earth for what it is. And not only is it not being recognised as God's beautiful flat earth, and you should just appreciate that, you're engaging in a debate so you can convince some of the fart sniffer that you're more intellectual than they are, because when you break down the argument that you're having, you're all using flat earth prerequisites in the argument anyway. So that story, if I've got it convoluted with things like YouTube chats and live interactions from audience members, especially when it's convoluted in the fact that particular person goes on to be an interviewee, I need to break down the conversation to make it timeless. So someone 50 years from now won't be going, I don't understand or follow this YouTube chat thing. It's like, that's not key to the story. So I need to put it in more generic language to make it more timeless, thinking it may not sell. It may not sell any copies initially. You know, it may be my inner circle that buys it and then it falls on its arse. But it's still going to be in existence. It's been, or it will be, registered with the Library of Congress and ISBN, various other things, so it can be acquired through libraries. So from that perspective, it's going to be an available piece of material, but it won't necessarily line my pockets while I'm alive. You know, it might not even line the pockets of my daughters when I'm gone and they're inheriting something from me and the book's still in existence.
Oh my God, I hear this all the time. This is crazy. They did not have the ability to promote their art back then. You have the ability through the internet, interviews, going on shows to promote this piece of art that you are trying to sell. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Did you cut off everything I was saying starting the show?
Yeah, well, we're about 4 minutes over time, so I mean, I've got to start the live show, generally speaking, on time. I waited for you to tell me that I'm in the pre-show to fill the audience in, as we've immediately gone to internal discussion. Neil's suggesting that the book will do really well when it gets released imminently, so it's going to get handed back to me hopefully in the next 7 to 10 days as a final, check this over, make absolutely certain it's, ready to go out to the public. And then hopefully another week after that, it'll actually be published. So we're talking, I keep saying this, in the next couple of weeks. If I could count how many times, it's probably at least a dozen times in the last couple of months that I've said it's going to be a couple of weeks. But in this case, it is actually with the publisher, and it's not within my control how long it takes. So I'm sort of chasing him every week or two to say, got an ETA, how long, what else needs doing, and then little bits and bobs go between us. Anyway, with that all being said, in the pre-show, Neil saying, well, hopefully it'll do really, really well. Or not hopefully. How is it that you phrased it, Neil? You can just speak for yourself, you're here.
You were comparing it, like Refracted said, it'll probably be more successful, more popular 100 years from now, like any fine art. My rebuttal is, Picasso did not have the means to promote it the way you do. But you're in 2026, you have YouTube, you have freaking the internet. You can go put yourself on various shows and promote the book. So to me, the success relies on how well you promote it.
Yeah, I mean, it will be down to my ability to promote stuff, and, it's not like I'm unfamiliar with that particular territory, having worked with manufacturing goods in a small scale and going out and promoting them and selling them. So it's not like I'm unfamiliar with promoting stuff. And in time, people will release a press release from me. But the point I was making wasn't necessarily that that's correct or incorrect. I've written it with a light that it'll last a long time. Now, there are certain examples that buck this trend where you've got to just talk about your YouTube channel specifically. If you're talking about the number of current subscribers and the book's coming out now, from that perspective, it'll always be dated if YouTube disappears off the map. Same goes for the number of views, which is just not a relevant statistic if you're not, watching TV. 20, 30 years from now, if you tell people how many million viewers you were getting on your TV show, people will be like, well, what does that mean? How do I benchmark that against anything to give it context? And the answer is we don't necessarily. The same goes for YouTube stats. But where it's talking about me as an author at the early stages of the book, that's not necessarily relevant. Whereas when you get to the end of the book and you're trying to make somebody recognise that the argument that was perceived to be so important by us, on flat earth debate specifically in some of the instances, was superseded when you realise that all of the flat earth measurements that are being used and employed to have the debate render the debate utterly pointless. It's only because you've managed to whistle past the flat earth prerequisites and measurements that you're even engaged in a debate. Therefore, when you assess the debate, you go, well, why am I having the debate? It's because of your own insecurity and wanting to lord it over someone else who's got a preconceived notion like you thought you had in past tense, but are still retaining in current tense and therefore arguing with somebody. But in the process of becoming so smart and intellectual, you recognise your own idiocy and stupidity in retrospect when you see how flat earth had to be measured to have the discussion. So in the sort of summary of the chapter, the last chapter that is, I'm trying to word it in such a way that excludes words like live stream chat. So if you're watching this now, right, you're in a live stream chat and you can type away on your keyboard and say something like, "Hey, Neil, DD," says Skeptic936, one of the Patreon members and members of the show, right, in the live stream chat. Now, if you're reading in the last chapter about a participant who I rename Raven Edgar, is the name of the character, and you're reading about how Raven Edgar's in the live stream chat, today, that makes a lot of logical sense to a reader. 50 years or 100 years, heaven forbid from now, somebody reads about that and they might try and ascribe some value to something that they don't necessarily conceptualise easily, rather than the main point, which is this particular character was describing their interactions with transceivers on relay stations that were about 20 miles apart. And because of a mountain range being in the way, she couldn't get one of the transceivers to connect to the previous relay. So she points her transceiver at the original source, the original transmitter, and gets a perfect signal over 100 miles away. The point of the story being concluded 12 years ago for me chronologically from this point, I'm telling you this story now as an audience member in my chat, she's highlighting the significance of not having a mountain range in the way or any Earth curve in the way of the original transmission. The mountain range, which you can see on the chart, is blocking her view because of the altitude measurements from sea level for the mountain that's obscuring the view of the transceiver. And she can see on the map that the original source is over 100 miles away. But in the significance of waking up to the fact that Earth is flat, the lack of Earth curve obstruction is the main focus of the story, sparking debate by somebody that suggests that it's the ionosphere bouncing the signal, it's a refracted signal, whatever the suggested overcome for our anti-flat Earth perspective of a lack of Earth curve getting in the way of this transceiver signal or point source to the original source signal. The overarching story, however, requires 100 miles be measured, 20 miles be measured, the mountain's elevation off sea level be measured. Everything about the story hinges on having flat Earth measurements that are axiomatically tied to horizontality and directionality, azimuth, altitude, rise over run, distance in the first instance in its linear nature, horizontal when describing miles for the original source signal to be received. So the lack of some perceived religious belief in an Earth curve that isn't appearing is irrelevant when you've got all of the measurements required to assert your belief. Now, if that story, which is the roundout, it's the last chapter in my book that I'm describing to you, if that particular roundout is convoluted by me being, current in terms of my terminology for things like a live stream chat, it'll make sense to a reader today, but won't necessarily make sense further down the line. That is to say, I've rewritten it in a way that if you remember this, if you happen to be a member of the audience listening to this who reads the book, you'll read it and get to the last bit and go, why did you describe the live stream chat in a YouTube channel in such a vague and overly sterilised and generalised way? And the answer is because I want it to remain a little bit timeless. I don't necessarily expect it to set the world on fire initially, but I've written it in a manner that lets somebody understand and appreciate how the detachment from globe belief allows both a person who wants to retain their globe belief and somebody who's departing from it the ability to whistle past the flat Earth prerequisites in measurement terms. And how embarrassing, to be able to just use that as an example at the end of a book, especially if now you're reading it and departing from that globe belief, or now you're reading it and arguing with globe believers and saying, how stupid are you? Why don't you get it? Why are you telling me that we've got reciprocal zenith angles? Why are you telling me that just because we measure it flat doesn't mean it is? Why are you telling me that I can measure elevation angles from a flat plane, but that means the plane's curved? Those sorts of things are questions that you will be leaving yourself in a position to have answered at the conclusion of my book. And I want that to be the case long into the future, even if it doesn't necessarily line my pockets particularly well in the immediate future. I want it to be a timeless book, basically. So those sorts of things have had attention paid to them. It doesn't mean I think it will be unsuccessful, far from it. I'll go out and promote it, and I obviously want it to bring in money. That's the whole point. I don't want it to fail, far from it. I want it to be extremely successful and earn me revenue. But I don't think it's going to, suddenly sell millions of copies, far from it. But it might be the case that 100 years from now, it's still something that is referenced. and can explain in a sort of semi-timeless manner. The linguistic entropy will still apply no matter what. But to a certain extent, like I compared it to the, who is it, Newton and Bentley, the letter between the two of them, you know, that language is in some ways dated, but in other ways beautifully up to date and absolutely pertinent when he's moaning, Newton that is. So you kind of want to phrase things in a way that can be digestible without necessarily losing focus to things that might go out of date, like YouTube itself. But you in the chat, you know what I mean when I say you in the chat, right? But that sort of abbreviation has to be rubbed out when you're writing these things down, because you don't want you in the chat to be, you know, confused with something of importance when you're trying to describe an overall conception of having Earth measurements, believing that you are on a ball, departing from that belief in a ball, and then whistling past the measurements that everybody's using to suggest whether or not we've got Earth curve. And now, retrospectively, going, wow, how did we whistle past every single flat Earth measurement that everybody was using? There we go, I'm done.
Nathan, when you first came across this topic, what did it do to you? Right? Now, picture that. Now, there's going to be people that this book comes across their table, let's say, or somebody hands it to them, or they hear about it somewhere. It's going to have the same effect on them. So you don't know if it's going to sell 1 million copies, and you don't know if it isn't going to sell that many copies. You never know. But I do know that the topic is very, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it catches you, you know? Because for years, we're told that we live on something, and then you find out that it's not. So it is something that gets people thinking, right? So I don't understand why such a downplay on it, on the book, but I do know that the topic, when people find out about it, it's I mean, I couldn't stop. Like when I first started, I was looking for anything that I could find to give me more of this so-called flat Earth that everybody's telling me that I live on a globe. So now I'm hearing that it's flat. So let me find some more information out. And it's like that for everybody that runs across it. There's a new guy I seen the other day, brand new to the topic. Sounds like any one of us 10 years ago. So it's still fresh.
I'm not downplaying it. I'm just tempering my own expectations. You know, a lot of people around me at the moment are poor, very poor. And as much as I want to help everybody out, I can't, because I'm also poor. So as much as I'm selfishly moaning about how poor I am, it's one of those that I have always recognised that the people who support me and have supported me over the years are often fairly humble people. Very humble. You know, yesterday we were talking to Surf Daddy, and he's talking about him, you know, being a sheep hoarder. And as a sheep herder, he's what I would consider to be about as humble as he gets. Farmers are very humble people. I've spent a good chunk of my life around farmers, and they're pretty humble people. So when somebody supports me, and they're just a humble guy with a normal job, like Len's a gardener. Like, we're not dealing with people who've got endless funds to support little old me, and they do. Yeah? And that's very humbling when you find that out. So I'm not expecting this little humble community that's been built by me over the last 10 or 12 years, in earnest, maybe 10 years since Flat Earth debate. That is something that I don't want to necessarily start bigging myself up like I'm suddenly going to be changing the world with a little book. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't put my absolute heart and soul into it, and, you know, it's gone through turmoil. One of the drafts got stolen. You know, I'm hearing in the pre-show that I'm being demanded to release the videography of me creating the 5th draft with the assistance of 2 people who had offered their assistance to help me. John Stunyer and the Adam Meakin, if anybody's wondering who these people are. I remember when there was beefs on the internet, and I used to watch beefs, and people wouldn't mention the names of the people who they're beefing with. And people would be like, well, I want to know who this person is. I want to go and have a little looky-loo. And that's why people don't mention their names. But in this particular instance, you're like, it's part of the narrative of the book, and by whatever you want to call it, providence, divine intervention, the end product's going to be better. So I'm more proud of it as a consequence of the turmoil that it's been through. And in many ways, I'm flattered that somebody would want to become a little mini me and take on parts of my achievements throughout the last 10 to 12 years. That's flattering, right? So you just take it as what it is, in spite of the thieves then making demands that you release the material of the creative process. Like, okay, I won't be doing anything. There's a good chance 3 or 4 months from now their names will never be mentioned again. That may be the very last time their names ever get mentioned. That's to say that that's what, if you're trying to create a swan song, as they suggested when they were stealing my material, they wanted their name on it for their swan song, end quote. You're like, well, the way you create that is by creating a lasting impression on people. And sometimes that's done on a one-to-one basis. Ask politicians who go out kissing babies' heads. And sometimes it's done on a mass scale. But it's a combination of that and everything in between that creates a legacy. Now, to suggest that I want to create a legacy, to me, isn't very humble. It's quite arrogant, in fact. Yeah? Now, I don't pretend for 1 second that I have influence beyond the, I think I get a total of 8,000 to 10,000 individuals that watch this show, and the subscriber retention is low relative to the number of individuals who come here. That is to say, it's not necessarily reflective of whether or not they enjoy the material. Most people don't like being told they're wrong about their globe faith. In some small sense, that seed of being a 12-year-old boy gets planted into you, and there's a good chance that people dislike that rather than like it. So to over-endorse myself to the point where I'm bigging myself up in a way that makes me need a legacy or to need to have a swan song is kind of arrogant.
You're not.
I know I'm not.
You're not.
I'm doing this by contrast to the individuals who've created part of my story of this book that's about to be released, Neil. Yeah, that's just how it is. For the individuals that want to retain some sort of fame, to have a swan song, you're not fucking Queen. You know what I mean? You're not some big rock band. What are you doing? But that's the problem with delusional thieves, right? They want the quick buck. They want to steal the valor and take ownership of things that they haven't developed and created. And that's fine, because when somebody wants to steal what you've created, a persona that you've molded, a achievement that you've endured to produce, then you can only take that as flattering. But what it's ultimately done is, by provenance, by divine intervention, as some of the Christians on the panel want to see it as, created a product that will be more timeless in that regard, that will be slid across the desks of certain people in a few years to come, and hopefully be read with that in mind, that step from a globe faith that was separate in suggested to be scientific terminology, separate from geography, that is, being transitioned into just a pure recognition of that which was already being taught to you in geographical contexts. Your understanding of sea level won't alter through understanding this information, only that you had a belief in that which was requiring flat earth prerequisites and measurements to develop. That's a spherical worldview created by the church. Now, there's a certain amount of historic accuracy that the book imparts, but it isn't necessary to understand the overarching main point, which everybody has told me lied about. I'm not going to pander to this either. I'm just going to look down the camera where I say this. People lie to you. What do they lie to you about? I'll give you one straight example. Golden bullet. They tell you they want the one ring to rule them all. That is because, according to them, they want to wake the world up, right? Even in this discussion, we're describing sliding books across to a third party, unnamed in this particular example. Well, that's a exuberant display of you wanting to be more superior to the person that you slide the information to. I've imparted this information upon you. And this is a complete lie. What people really want is to be able to say, aren't I fantastic? That's it. That's what people really want. When they say they want a golden bullet, you go, okay, the golden bullet is, it was always being measured flat anyway, for everyone. Like, there aren't no exceptions to this statement of absolute fact. Earth was, is, and always will be measured flat. By everyone, in all circumstances, and without exception. There you go, you wanted a golden bullet. The only problem with the golden bullet is it makes the person holding the gun redundant. And they don't like that. People want to be valued. They want to see that their impartation, if that's the correct term, onto others is recognised. They want a swan song. They want a little fanfare and a band to play for them with their name in lights, with ticker tape parades for it. And it's kind of sad. Yeah? Know your place. Now, for me, I'm trying to say, well, what do I put as a positive spin on this when I look out the window and try and think about it? And then I go, what am I doing? I'm looking out the window and recognising God's creation. Not telling myself how fantastic I'll be for waking the world up if I sell 1 million copies of my book. That doesn't mean I haven't worked on it. It doesn't mean I'm not proud of it. It doesn't mean that it won't sell. It definitely will. It will generate me a revenue stream. Hopefully it'll be enough to keep the mortgage paid, which is all I really desire. But in terms of, do I want it to mean that my name goes down in history? No. Do I want it to be readable in 100 years and make people recognise that just looking out the window and recognising how beautiful the world is that you are in might be achieved by severing an attachment to a control narrative that's based on a foundational measurement of Earth's flat surface? So if that can be imparted on others, then I'll have done a good job. I don't necessarily expect that to be immediate, so I'm going to downplay it to a certain extent, especially getting closer to the release date. It'll come out without any fanfare. There's often people who build themselves up in terms of their own emotional attachment to their work, and they assume that they're going to suddenly set the world on fire. And I just don't want to, delude myself in that regard. I've seen amazing products get produced and then gone out and promoted them and failed to sell them. They've sold in relatively small numbers and then built up their, credibility and esteem with users over a prolonged period of time through a lot of work. So I understand and appreciate that there's going to be a certain amount of effort that has to go into me promoting the book when it comes out. I'll have to go out, knock on people's doors in metaphor and say, can you have me on your show and talk about this book? And hope that they'll read it and take it in, as opposed to just want to take the piss out of a flat earther. I'm pretty good at gauging those things. But I will, as Neil says, go out and, we do have the means at our disposal to go out and promote things like this. So it will, but I just don't want to delude myself that I'm suddenly going to have my name in lights, that it's going to suddenly be some sort of swan song or get me some sort of notoriety moving into the future. I don't think it's going to do any of those things. Hopefully it'll generate a small stream of income so I'm not as poor as everyone around me. And that's not without saying I want to stand on the shoulders of those people, but I just recognise it when it's happening. Everyone around at the moment, and if you're an audience member, you'll feel this as I say it, you'll feel the pinch, because everybody seems to be feeling the pinch. There's a lot of people who are struggling. We had Pearl on the other day. Part of her backstory is about being completely demonetized. You look at her and go, she's got 2.2 million viewers or subscribers on YouTube. I don't know about how many she's got on the other platforms, but she's got a story of being demonetized for whatever reason. And suddenly she's in a position where she's churning through her money to player and employees and staff that produce this YouTube content. And there's no revenue coming in, or very limited revenue from donations coming in. And you go, okay, so even for the person on the outside that comes along and watches one of her videos, sees she's got 2+ million subscribers and assumes she's on easy street. You go, no, you're never on easy street. If you're making comparisons to somebody else, then you're always going to feel like you're doing worse than they are. And if you're in tune with a community that is just humble people, often humble people fall on hard times. If you're one of those people watching, and you know you are, I'm not going to mention any names, but there's plenty of people around me that are struggling. I wish I had more money to help those people. The amount of support I've had, I wish I could give it back. Occasionally I'll give someone a few bucks and go, I say the same thing, I really wish I could give you more. And I just can't. But hopefully that will change in terms of being a little bit better off because of an extra revenue stream that I've worked really hard to achieve. It's taken years. That's to say this book, when it comes out, is years in the making. Doesn't mean it's suddenly going to set the world on fire either. It just means that it's had a lot of turmoil to produce. It's been a long road to produce it. It's so perceived to be valuable that others want to steal it. So it's got a lot of weight up until this point, and it's not even come out yet. But that doesn't mean I want to raise my own expectation level. I hope it does well. I really do.
Define weight.
Gravitas.
Nathan, you help a lot of people. Don't make it sound like you give them a couple of bucks here and there. Right? I can't even count how many times you helped me find money-wise. I lost count. So you could downplay it all you want, but I could also tell the truth.
Oh, whatever. It's not like I'm giving people hundreds of books. I'm sure in 2 donations, Len's probably outstripped every penny I've ever given anybody ever. So, it's not like I've got a large stream of money to give away. But if I've got money in my bank and somebody reaches out to me, I'll go, yeah, of course I'll help you out. I feel bad for everybody who's supported me over the years. And there are loads of people who've supported me. It hurts more when, as we were talking about Adam and QE, when people like that offer you support, not financially. I'm just poor, I just need money. But if you say that, that's kind of dirty. So when someone turns around and says, I'm not going to give you money, but I'll give you my time to help you produce a book so you can generate more revenue. That's so touching. And also, so the words of 2 con men. Yeah, that's what a confidence trickster will say. To gain your confidence, I'll help you when they're fixing to steal from you. Like I say, these particular thieves are currently demanding that I release my creative process for the book that's about to come out. I could use some vulgarity that I've used with other ballers, but I know that these people are still near and dear to some of the people that I value. That's friends. That is to say, in spite of them having stolen from me, they've got a whole gaslighty story to tell people who are close to them. Some people have bought it, and you're like, just because I've walked away from 2 people who've stolen from me after tricking me with confidence that they would assist me and help me in writing the book that's about to come out. And then what do you know? They've got their own book that's come out a couple of months ago. Yeah, they stole my skeleton material and slapped some cock and bull story about a woman named Betty on top of it, taking my name off and alluding to having developed housekeeping questions, something that's been a staple of flat earth debate shows for the last however many years, repeated at nausea by me. But nothing changes actual history, and it only makes the journey of the book that eventually, like I say, it's imminent, a little bit more tumultuous. One of the chapters is on being betrayed by various different individuals, not just those 2. Plenty of people have tried to betray me over the course of flat earth debate. And again, you can only see as a very poor financially man that life has other things, as it draws a lump in my throat, of value. There's more to life than money. And people value things often higher than the actual dollar or pound note value that things have got ascribed to them, right? Valor is priceless. You can steal valor. You can steal credit. You can steal ideas. And often people will value these higher than the actual financial incentive that comes along with them. The power that money develops is something that other people crave. So recently with Michael Jackson's movie coming out, I think it's called Michael, there's stories that come out about his power struggle from some of the companies that were under a certain amount of creative control over his process. And you go, this man was absolutely minted. He was rich beyond most people's wildest imagination, but he still had power struggles in spite of being rich. So the money didn't get him to a point where he was content because he didn't have the control or the power. The same goes for people like Prince, right? Spent a lot of his time fighting for the increased degree of control over his own material. But it's him. Prince is the guy that's making it. He's the guy that's brought love and joy with his music and his material. It is absolutely him. But the people behind it were taking a perceived amount of control away through the money and revenue generated. So there's a knock-on effect, and most people only quantify the circumstance with the money. It's like, no, the money isn't really the relevance. And when it comes to people stealing credit for things that you've done over your career, you go, some people will recognise what I do, and some people will recognise that what I do is actually what someone else says they have done. And you go, who cares? People who are taken in by that are taken in by frauds and charlatans and thieves and easily conned. Now, I can't help that, and I'm not going to try and persuade the world against every single evildoer. You can only detach yourself and then by reflection or influence show by your own actions that you're not necessarily going to interact with thieves and con men after you've exposed them for what they are. You can only carry on in your own path in the most honest way that you see fit, and hope that you're doing a good job for the people who are supporting you, and hope that you can support them in return. So it's nice to hear that Neil's, pleased for it is just a couple of bucks I've given him here and there. He obviously sees it as having a higher degree of value, and I'm going to downplay it because I'm not a rich man to offer that. But in my mind, the few bucks that I can throw around when I've got a positive bank balance are nothing compared to the amount of support I get from my panel when they're sat here day after day after day, achieving this bit. They're sat in front of a camera, entertaining an audience. That's not about the money. It's the whole whistle while you work philosophy, right? If you can enjoy what you do, who is it I heard say this the other day? It was a rapper. I can't remember, it'll come to me. There was a rapper that was saying this, and somebody was saying to me, you're working all the time. And it's like, yeah, whistle while you work. If you love what you do, it's kind of like you're not working. And because of the support I get from the people around me, I get that joy. Now, while I've got the corners of my mouth turning up saying this to camera, there's people in the audience that, like me, will be getting goosebumps from this because they feel that sense of community. And again, when somebody's stolen from you, yes, you lose a certain amount of time and a certain potential value that you could have ascribed to something that you could have been selling if it hadn't have been stolen. But you go, but that isn't, again, the overarching importance. That sense of community, that feeling that you get that gives you goosebumps when you're talking about things like this is something that you get excluded from if you are deceitful. You're suddenly no longer taking part in something that's joyous for the people who are still taking part in it. There's a nefarious endeavour by cults that do the same thing. They try and impart that feeling onto their members. You need to look at things like Scientology to get an idea of what I'm talking about. Otherwise, there'd be no Scientologists. There'd be no cult members. But you've got to have that weaponized in a way, that feeling of belonging, that feeling of security that you get from being in a group with a common interest. Now, for us, I feel bad at the moment because I'm kind of shattering some of the communal bonds that have been built up over those 10 years by saying that we are actually kind of insignificant to the ends of the perceived subject. So that's flat Earth. When you recognise how flat Earth must be measured to achieve the so-called debate, you can only, if you have any degree of introspection, recognise your own insignificance, right? Just to round this out as a point, excuse me. In the book, when you're reading that, you'll hopefully, as a reader, get that sense, that kind of slight sense of foreboding that I'm trying to impart on the reader when they take this information in. That is to say, without me or you reading, the world would still have been measured flat. And that must be the case, even if you want to perceive that there's a circumstance where you can truly believe that you're on a ball. That would still require Earth to be measured flat to create that belief. For you to later shatter it and say it's not true, or before, during, and after that so-called recognition of a world that's spherical, you still had to impart flat Earth measurements on mathematics to achieve that cognitive state. So it makes us a little bit insignificant, a little bit redundant. And I know that there's people who are utterly hating me from my own side at the moment because I'm calling them conspiratards. And they hate that. They hate that when you kind of make somebody go, even if I say I'm that conspiratard, I was looking at the pseudoscience of psychology and psychopathy and, subliminal messaging. Those sorts of things are very conspiratorial. It's easy for me to mock somebody who's talking about 9/11 truth or Sandy Hook when I looked at subliminal messages and psychopathy. So I'm trying to demean my own path to this subject by pointing out how a controlled opposition narrative's been put in place by having people like me, with my conspiratorial nature, investigate the subject of flat Earth so that I can argue with fart-sniffing, Batman T-shirt wearing wankers who want to believe in sky vacuums with rockets travelling around the moon in them. Well, those two groups can then take the pressure off a general public that doesn't have to value that information because the fart-sniffing dweebs are valuing it for them. So they don't have to invest the very expensive cognition in learning about that. And the guy who's come because he's taken that goosebump feeling of finding a community that realises the world's been lied to, those two groups can be set against each other and argue amongst themselves about whether or not Earth's spherical. Now, as I slowly describe what I did 2 years ago, which is, how do we climb out this scummy pool? Everybody in it seems to be a scumbag. How do we climb out into the flat plane and territory of normies? Well, the way you do it is by recognising that which all normies have been taught in the geography class. I appreciate there's a cognitive dissonance from the science class that says Earth's spherical, but your geography class taught you how flat it was all measured. Nothing's changed. But that means that we have to kind of leave behind an era of being conspiratorial. And I'm not going to do it without a tear in my eye. It was an exciting time. Finding out all these perceived to be important conspiracy theories like 9/11 are exciting when you're in that moment as a community that recognises how Earth's not a sphere. But now recognising how Earth not being a sphere would require you build a sphere for it to not be based on flat Earth measurements means that I kind of feel like we have climbed out the pool. So we're in this little limbo area where it's kind of empty. We've metaphorically climbed back up the hill, but we've still got the knowledge in tow that Earth was and is and always will be flat when we get back up to the normie plateau. But it means that on the one hand we're outcasts because we're going to be immediately potentially shoving the normal guy into cognitive dissonance when we are just honest about how we appreciate the world's flat in geographical terms like they were taught. And most of us aren't going to be prepared to lie and say, yeah, Earth's a sphere, because we're just lying to ourselves. Most of us won't do that. So we're in this kind of limbo area up here. Down here in the scummy pond, you can still look back just over your right shoulder and see everybody arguing about how Earth is or isn't a sphere. As I said at the top of the show about reciprocal zenith angles, or how even though we measure it flat, it doesn't mean it is flat, or whatever rhetoric comes from the anti-flat Earth crew in that scummy pond we've just crawled out of. You can still hear them, but we have departed it, I feel, as a group. We're moving on to greater things. Now, from that perspective, I do use the book as a marker, as a waypoint, however you want to term it, a position in time where you can say, there, that marks the moment where we climbed out of the scummy globe Earth versus flat Earth pool and recognised it for what it is. A controlled way of having people who come from a conspiratorial background argue with dweebs that have highly valued heliocentrism. And it all gets dirty and scummy quite quickly. But that marks the point, the release of the book a couple of weeks from now. I do feel like it is not in transition, not like we're climbing up the hill, like we've climbed over the hill and gone, well, that was an era. And it wasn't a bad era. It was very exciting. It was full of a lot of scum as well. The pool is dirty now we look back at it, and we have kind of now got to brush that scum off ourselves and figure a way to communicate with the normal man that Earth is just as you were taught it in the geography class, measured flat.
But when you measure it flat,
Wrong button. Wrong button.
Also,
Whoops. I meant to press the chat button just to shout out somebody who gave me a super chat, and I pressed the intro button by mistake. Whoops. Hey, Nathan, hope you're well. So excited for the book. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. I can't actually see who it was that gave it me. Let's see. Super Moshady. Thank you very much for the $10. Really appreciate the support.
Well, Uncle Ben said, can't wait for the book. I hope it's not filled with YouTube links.
No, it's not full of any YouTube links. Why would it be? It's a book. Why would it be full of YouTube links?
He's obviously taking a shot.
Oh, of course he is. So that's an in-joke for the fifth draft that got stolen and given a thin veneer of a story about a woman named Betty who can't keep a man whilst talking about the housekeeping questions. Well, that particular book, their assistance that they offered me in process from fourth to fifth draft was to offer the ability to better reference and cite the information that was being fact-checked by these two thieves. So what they did was insert quite a lot of YouTube links, right, into the book, which while they were being put in, I was thinking, well, obviously some of these will have to go, or they'll get typed out in full, or whatever, they'll be referenced in a better manner. But those were the citations that were being inserted while these two thieves were telling themselves that they're actually authors because they're fact-checking and inserting citations into my material, which they later claimed were copyrighted. Somebody, I think it was Len, said something to the effect of all of the information that they took from, in this case, Quantum Eraser's website was cited. That is to say, it was quotes and other people's material. He said the most original material was the copyright disclaimer itself, which I thought was hilarious. Nevertheless, yes, I understand. The piss take is that the book that was stolen and got lots of veneer put on the top of it and included lots of YouTube links in a piece of written material, aka a book, which is just what you get, when you steal someone else's material and then decide that you're going to change my name to the name of a spinster who can't keep a man, and then subtly alter the names and phraseologies of the housekeeping questions to avoid getting sued. It's like, yeah, pathetic. But there we go. That's what you got to do if you're a thief.
Just as a waypoint in time, though, this wave of flat Earth, I guess you would say it, will be different than every other wave, or however you want to describe it, resurgence of it, and as a topic, because it doesn't. I don't know how to say it.
Well, while you're thinking,
I agree with you.
Well, while you're thinking of the words, I should note that refracted curvature in the book is recognised as that bit out at sea where you see a little hump in the water that's eventually becoming the tidal wave that takes out the city. Now, if by metaphor this is the waypoint, aka the tidal wave, then the swell in the ocean was John and Bunk and Debunk, and the way I put it into the story was actually him going in front of Ruhif and hearing endless cockwaffle, only to concede all the points of a globe Earth because it's inconsequential. Like with my story of Raven Edgar, my story is the insignificance of her story of Earth curve not getting in the way of transmissions because of a recognition of the flat Earth measurements used to tell the story. Well, in the book, well, that's the conclusory point, that's the very last chapter. I can't remember what point in the book, 2/3 of the way, let's say, in the book, it recognises John as being that swell when he concedes all points to an opponent because, as I point out in the book, it's inconsequential. You can concede all points of globe belief if you know that all points of globe belief require flat Earth be measured to create those globe beliefs. So making the concession, oh yes, I'll concede to all points that you have in this regard for globe faith, from John, a point to make a reader, I keep wanting to say audience member, to make a reader recognise that if you know how flat Earth must be measured to create these arguments, you can concede all the arguments because the arguments become moot. So that waypoint starts with John. That's where it originates. That's the swell out in the ocean if the waypoint is a tidal wave.
Well, I don't think that this level of understanding has been reached in the past, or if it has, it's been hidden. I don't want to make an argument to silence fallacy, but
It hasn't, John.
It's very zen for us on the inside, I would say. And if you're a long-time subscriber, if you've been watching the show for a long time, so it's often a criticism that, well, you just keep saying the same thing on each show. Like, no, we don't. It's not a clock, right? The show is not mechanical. It's not just the gears turning through the motions. It's constantly changing. It's more like, if you want to say it's slow, more like a glacier. It's still ripping huge chunks of the land out and reforming the entire landscape. But it looks like it's not moving. Well, it is. But if you're, as I say, a long-term subscriber, a member, or a patron, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The subtle iterations of rhetoric change over time has got us to a point where we are now, where we say, it always was measured flat. We are redundant in this discussion. And we're redundant because the so-called silver bullet that was being asked for was in effect the entire time. We just didn't see it. It's like the Matrix code. You want to believe you're in a dream world? Well, if somebody showed you the code, you'd recognize it immediately. The problem being that then you can't turn the code off. You can only see the code because that's what it is. Well, for us, that's how it is now. We can only see the flat Earth prerequisite measurements in any so-called discussion. Well, that's a very Zen point that you reach. But it means that you do also have to recognize your own insignificance. If I wasn't here, we'd still measure miles flat because that's what a mile is. If I wasn't here, flight level would still be parallel with the ground level. If I wasn't here, in terms of ball belief, you'd still derive sphericity with an R value produced with flat Earth elevation angle measurements to stars and the sun. You'd still derive Earth curve values from flat mile measurements and perpendicular altitude measurements from sea level. Those prerequisites were in place regardless. They were in place before the ball even existed as an idea in someone's head.
Yeah, but you're highlighting them, Nathan. You're highlighting it. Now, it may have been implied many times. Even if you read Robotham, it's probably implied, but it's not realized. You are highlighting that it's measured flat. So, yeah, it doesn't make a difference when anybody says it'll still be measured flat. It always was. That's how God created it. But you are highlighting it, and I've not seen it done anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's very Zen. If you're an audience member, and again, when I've been writing it, I've taken that into consideration because there is going to be people who are, probably the first people to buy it that need that Zen moment recognizing so that they can, feel those moments as they've elapsed in a short format. We're talking about 12 years condensed into about, 2 or 3 hours of reading. So from that perspective, you want to get to the end of the book and go, yeah, I lived that experience. I went from feeling the pain of losing an argument to a ball believer to now recognizing that during the loss, I was holding all these silver bullets in my pocket. All of the discussion was about flat Earth prerequisite elevation angles, depression angles from eye level, surface level, sea level, flight level, north, whatever it is that you were arguing about. Everything that was in there proved the flat Earth, and you didn't need to argue when it seemed important. Therefore, the loss seemed important when there was a perceived loss as a flat earther.
Hey, Nathan, I'm going to read something from the chat and tell me what part you say, all right, no. Because everything sounds good except, well, you'll see. At E flat C5C says, flat Earth /FED has swept the field. There's no debate. There's no reason for excess emotion. The more Nathan remains calm and deliberate, the more he and flat Earth wins.
It was all good till the last bit, the very last, last word. It was all good to the very last sentence.
Just the last part, E flat.
Go on, Christian.
Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, there's nothing to win, mate. There's no win and lose. It's just the antecedent of the Earth being a horizontal plane in which we all measure the Earth flat. Even the low believers will be measuring the Earth flat for their beliefs. So there's nothing to go at war about or debate or anything to argue about. And we can all just be calm about it. But that's just the way it is.
It is, but there's an inconsistency with that.
There's no win and lose.
There is no win and lose, but there's a perception of a win and a loss. So there's an inconsistency.
Correct.
When you recognise your own indifference and that it was being measured flat anyway, like planes needed to have surveyed the land in miles to know how far they were travelling, and they needed topographical deviations explicitly detailed so they wouldn't crash into the ground, like mountains and high land for takeoff and landing, that's using horizontal distances so they can descend towards it when they calculate it with trig. Now, these are axioms that are being employed so that people don't die in the aircraft that flies all over the flat plane with the flat measurements in the flat directions all day, every day. Now, that was the case long before heliocentrism. People were still out there sailing. People still understood directionality and had axiomatic principles that kept them safe. They were all flat then. They're flat now, and they'll always be flat in the future. So for the guy who's in the pond, down and dirty, arguing for our Earth is flat with a perceived enemy, they have this perception that us recognising how inconsequential we are will help us win. Like, no, not only do we recognise that we're inconsequential to the fact of Earth's flat measurements, it means that it's ludicrous to end up in debate. Now, the only reason we will is because there'll be an overarching force from the perceived opponents to drag us back in. It's like in The Godfather, when he's trying to clean himself up. I think it's Godfather 3, and he's explaining this to the Pope. Yeah? All he wants to do is be legitimate. But the people who want him to, in this case, argue about Earth's lack of sphericity or its perceived sphericity, want you, the very claim to be, in my case, zen, calm, recognising the facts of flat Earth prerequisites that I am inconsequential to. I'm going to assist in a debate that isn't necessary. So therefore, you're left with this inconsistency where, what's my message? If my message is, you're inconsequential, Earth will be measured flat anyway, that's true, but why do I need to communicate that message? It seems to be contradictory. If you understand how inconsequential the entire debate is, yes, I do, yeah. Well, then why would you need to explain that to somebody? You wouldn't need to. So why are you? I don't know. That's a very good question.
Because everybody does not know yet. There's the world. What do you figure? Even if I'm generous and I give us 10%, since this has become a topic, 10% have realized that Earth is flat, and 90% of the world still think they're on a water ball. They don't know it yet. So they don't know that it's measured flat. So that's why we keep doing it.
I would say it's even worse than that, Neil, because out of that 10% that you're giving us, let's say less than 10% of those know it's flat.
That's true. You're right. And that's why we do what we do too. Because perhaps, now their eyes will be open to it. I mean, it's a penny dropping situation when you realize it. Now, I don't know if it's because the work I do through my whole life, I've always dealt with measurement. It came very easy to me, but I can't expect it to come easy to everybody. I think I still struggle with that. Like, why are people not getting it? I mean, you need a flat plane of reference for any measurement you take.
Yeah, it's
So
like you're talking about the story arc of Neo, aren't you? At the start, Neo resurrects himself a bit like the Jesus archetype when he's shot about 1 million times because he recognises the world that he's in for being an artificial world. So then you could say, well, at the end of the first movie, why does that not conclude the character arc? Well, simply recognising how he's in a system and he has got some bearing on the system could lead you into this perception that suddenly that draws a close to the story. Well, it doesn't. He's still in there fighting with agents in the second installment, of that particular, however many stories it is now, 4. I think they've had Matrix movies. But he's still got to fight the agents. Now, the fact that he does it with complete ease and can fight 100 Agent Smiths all at once is inconsequential to the character arc. There's still going to be the 100 Agent Smiths that want him to be wrong. In spite of him seeing through the code, being able to manipulate the code, he can stop the silver bullets. By metaphor, I've described flying them straight back at the opponent. But that means that there's a perceived opponent there. So then you move further down for us, our character arc, and we go, well, if our purpose was to convince people that there's a matrix code, and then at some point you make a few people aware that there's a matrix code by metaphor, and then at the end of the character arc you go, well, in order for there to be any code, there's got to be the computer generating it. It goes without saying. So why am I trying to fight for the people that don't see the code when it's absolutely required regardless of them seeing it or not? Seems like a complete pointless endeavour. It's there anyway. The underlying code for us and our existence is flat Earth measurements, prerequisites, elevations, surface level, eye level, sea level, flight level. All of the things that we do when we build, survey, map, chart, or navigate Earth are all flat, and they always have been. So I can't see a purpose moving forward in convincing normies that the control structure that's currently in place is anything other than benign when it comes to the actual measurements of Earth. If I convince next man that he's wrong, there's a 50-50 chance that man will hate me for it. And if the 50% kicks in where they don't despise me for it, there's a good chance that they'll be inconsequential to the fact anyway. And the fact that it's measured flat was going to be in place regardless of me having the discussion. So why take the 50-50 gamble that the person will hate me? You know what I mean? Not rhetorical. Why take the gamble? Sometimes you're forced into expressing your understanding.
Because it's your duty as a man. You started down this path. You started a YouTube channel to discuss the nature of our reality. And in a lot of things, we're enlightened. We're enlightened about the scientific method, for instance, right? Now we realize it has nothing to do with Earth whatsoever, right? So people have been enlightened. So it's your duty to carry on. Now, did what's his name? Luther think that he was going to change the freaking or start a reformation when he slapped his letter on the door of the Roman Catholic papacy, whatever it is. I don't know exactly what he did, but I know it had something to do with a letter. He didn't think anything of it. He saw something in the scriptures that wasn't lining up and brought it to their attention. We see something in reality that's not lining up, and we're bringing it to people's attention. That's all.
Fair enough. Well, the book will definitely be a digestible way of doing that. I do hope, in all sincerity, that it gets slid across the desk of somebody who isn't necessarily inclined to look into the subject. And it does ramp up in terms of mental difficulty as you progress through the pages. So, from a perspective of somebody who's completely unfamiliar with the subject, it'll hopefully entice them in a manner that keeps them reading when they're presented with certain characters that are amusing or certain events that are interesting, to overall implant the notion and facts in the matter when it comes to the idea, for them at least, that Earth's flat. And the actual reality that that's how it's measured in all circumstances will hopefully be the overarching point that's communicated to the reader. And I hope those readers are normal people. You know, I hope it resonates with others beyond the community, and that people feel the only way that's going to happen is if people read it and go, yes, I can slide this across to Sally the spinster and have her understand towards the end of the process of reading it that Earth has been measured flat all along, and that they didn't need to get involved and they don't need to expand any cognitive processing in the direction of heliocentrism to understand how Earth is measured flat, and that in many ways it's congruent with their existing belief of a spherical Earth, because their spherical Earth belief is based on the same flat Earth measurements that were being measured all along. So hopefully that's a digestible format for somebody on the inside, that's us in this small community, to feel that it is a genuinely worthwhile endeavour to recommend it to a loved one without taking that 50-50 gamble that it's going to get them hated. It's not being presented in a way that says they're wrong. It's being presented in a way that says, I had this debate unnecessarily because Earth was always measured flat all along.
Yeah, I've run a 23-year career running around telling people that they were wrong about the shape of Earth. I regret that now.
That's unfortunate. You don't want to live with regrets. You made those decisions. Yeah, sometimes you do have to take the L, and it's good that you can admit when you've made mistakes. And in this case, when I say, would you ask yourself, this might make the person I'm giving this book to hate me. Why would you ever take that risk? And the answer is you probably wouldn't. So I've written it with that in mind, which is to say, I hope that people will read it and go, I can pass this on to next man and have the information imparted upon them without necessarily generating any animosity towards me in the process.
This is what I've been trying to get across to people. And it's just as bad as Ebola when people claim that there's infinite amount of land. You don't know that. So why make that claim? Right? It was done in the chat yesterday when you put up one of your shows. A guy was claiming that he knows how the sun and the moon are moving. And it's easy because a magnet flips. I forgot what he was putting together. But I'm like, you can't say that. I can't allow you to just say, you know how the sun, the stars, and the moon, you know how they have their movement. How could you validate that, Nathan? Oh, am I missing something?
Whoops, I was on mute on my radio mic. I'll say that all that again. You can't. I mean, what you can demonstrate, and I do, is go through the process that we've already got in the historic account. The historic account is we found more land. The worlds have been expanded. The territories have increased. You know, one of the things I say in the book is about going to see the map of Monday. And I say at the time in the book, it doesn't necessarily give us any more evidence of a flat earth. And then I kind of move on in the story. But later, and this is the main reason it gets referenced, is to point out how the worlds and territories were expanded. So this is in a chapter called The Offing. And it explains how the world has been easily shown in documented history to have had more land introduced to our existence. Those are just facts. You know, even the terminology that people give in terms of their phraseology for where they live. The new worlds, you say. I wonder where you got that terminology from. It's easily shown. So rather than leaning into this infinite plane idea, you lean into the historic narrative that's already in existence, because you're far less likely to find a challenge against it. When you say, okay, if you want to incorporate this with a Truman-style example where they tell you the world's wrapped around itself, you're not going to find any more, we've already discovered it all. So what, we discovered new land then? Yeah, we did. In recent history, relatively speaking, we found new land. Now, given that in a interim period, the world has been mathematically engineered to wrap around back on itself by using flat earth conventions like directionality, north, south, east and west, to achieve those ends, you can only put two and two together for an audience or member or a person listening to this when you break that down and leave them with the notion that, well, potentially there could be more. Well, yeah, but that's the only way you can phrase it without having somebody jump down your throat. Potentially, very easily, there could be, also very easily, more land. Because you don't know that there is. Yeah, you don't know that there isn't either. But what you can show with easily demonstrated recent history is we did find more land. Yeah? Now, where you're told that the new land is it where they previously found it in very recent history, beyond the offing, after the horizon? No, now they say that the soil in the sky. That's what they tell you. Now you're like, let me see. So logically, if we went out beyond the horizon and found new lands in recent history, that means that the new lands that we may potentially find moving forward are in the sky? No, that doesn't make any logical sense. But when you've pointed that out to somebody, when someone like me or Neil points that out to somebody, there's a temptation to say, so they're hiding. Who's they? This is ethereal they that's suddenly introduced to the story. They are hiding new land. Oh, so hold on. Not only is there a they, there's new lands definitely now in existence, and they're being hidden. Where do we get to this point? No. Let's stick to what we know. And it might not be true. It's just easily demonstrated in our recent history. If you're presenting this as a concept to somebody, as a new idea. In recent history, we found new land. Where did we find the new land? Was it in the sky? No. That's just the facts. Now, you can present all of that, and not a soul on earth can challenge me on anything I've just said. Did we find new lands beyond the horizon? Yes, we did. Did we find any in the sky? No. Well, that's the end of that discussion then, isn't it?
Well, this guy, it's a guy that comes in a lot. His name is Dr. David Banner. So he says that powerful lodestones placed on the surface of water, measured flat, that power the sun, moon, and wandering orbs. Now, you can't make that claim. How would you validate that? So when I challenge him to validate it, he takes me to a magnet.
I'm pretty sure I did actually read this. There was a character called Bruce Willis, and he was with this guy called Chris Rock. And they went out, they saw opera on this spaceship, they found all these elements, and then they bought these aliens. I'm sure it's recent history. I'm sure of it. Called the Fifth Element.
It's just that, as you know, you're a flat earther. You can't be making these claims if you can't validate them. Just like Nathan said, stick to what can be validated. Enough with the.
Look, do whatever you like.
This is what
right?
it is.
As much as I don't want to disagree with Neil, right? Far be it for me to tell you to not be what you are, right? What I have done in this show is specifically outline how the people who talk about flat Earth are conspiratards. Me talking about psychopathy, pure pseudoscience. Me talking about subliminal messaging. These are the people who talk about this. So is it a shock when someone talks about lodestones for powering the frickin' sun? You're like, yeah, shocking. What's next? Free energy from an Ethereum background radiation. Yeah. That's who you need to talk about this. Meanwhile, North's flat. Let's just say that once more. North is flat. That's what it is. That's how it's utilised. That's how it's measured. That's what it is. You want to ascribe it in horizontal terminology more accurately, then you'll give it a degree from North, with North being the 0. In the horizontal, always and without exception. All directionality requires Earth to be flat. What's that? Lodestones? You sound like a wanker. I've just got to put it out. You know, it'll lose me subscribers. It's been losing me for about the last 18 months. I won't lie. Because we're transitioning from the scummy pool. Now, as much as I don't like it, the scummy pool is full of two different categories of people. Fart-sniffing Batman T-shirt wearing wankers that will report you to the police and social services because they don't like their bull faith being challenged. And conspiratard hippies, pot smokers, who want to tell you that the world's made with powering lodestones for the sun and that there's extra land that's being hidden from you and that they're hiding God. That's what they want, that there's free energy just round the corner, that there was a previous existence of civilization that were technologically more advanced than us that had been wiped out and hidden, that there's been giant resets and mud floods and trees were made of silicon that went up to the heavens, that mountains are actually naked models lying down beautifully. This is what people on the flat earth side of the globe versus non-globe discussion are. They've all been led to this subject. Are, in that category, the people talking about how Earth is not a sphere, are they geographers? Are they pilots? Are they navigators? Are they people who have charted the territory? Are they surveyors? No, none of the above. No, those are just the normal people who measure Earth flat anyway and don't have any problem with their cognitive dissonance in the weighting. That is to say that in the future, if they were to be pointed out that their belief in a sphere is incongruent with how they literally measure Earth, they'd just tell you, well, you just don't understand how North is the top of something. They'll come up with an excuse. Just because I measure it flat doesn't mean it's flat. If I present you with a flat Earth zenith angle, I can say that this other zenith angle deviates from a common horizontal, therefore it's curved. That's what they'll do. But they didn't need to have that dissonance pointed out to them for them to still be measuring the Earth flat and to be completely separate as normies doing geography or mapping or building or flying or navigating or mapping, to be completely and entirely separate from the guys who think there's free energy and a reset that's happened and the world was flooded by mud. That, you know, those are the conspiracies are us of the world. That's who they are. And they're the people who suggest Earth's flat, because then their suggestions can be perceived as that. A suggestion, a conspiracy that the Earth's flat. No, that's just geography. What do you mean, flat earther? No, geography. I cover geography now, not flat Earth. It is ipso facto measured flat Earth. That is. That's what it is. What, you want to disagree with me? Why? Did you want to argue about what a mile is? Why? That doesn't seem very productive. It won't change what a mile is either. You want to argue with me that Earth isn't flat, really? Why? Were you about to build something? Were you about to bring out a new map? Were you about to derive a new concept for distance? No, you weren't going to do anything. Why are you arguing with me about it? I don't care. I'm just talking about what geography is. Like when we measure Earth flat from a horizontal baseline called sea level, that's just us measuring Earth flat. A flat Earth is being measured. We, you, anybody who measures Earth will measure it flat because it's flat. Now, I can't help that, and I'm not going to defend it. I'm not going to justify my position as calling myself a flat earther simply because I highlight the geography of the world. No, that's just geography. What's that? No. When you talk about the geography of Earth and how Earth is measured flat in geography terms, you have to say it without saying the words flat Earth so often. It makes it more obvious that the flat Earth you're measuring should be categorised in science terminology and put up against fart-sniffing Batman T-shirt wearing dweebs so I can tell you how wrong you are. Didn't you know? Just talk about how horizontal and linear the distance measurement is in miles, and nobody will get confused that you're talking about flat Earth. What's that, you are? What are you, some sort of idiot? Just because we measure Earth flat doesn't mean it is. Oh, why? Oh, I didn't realise I was talking to somebody who has just had their cognitive dissonance highlighted to them. You're actually a globe believer. You also measure and map the world flat. What's that? We've got magnetic field lines that make north, a horizontal directionality in azimuth, the top of Earth. Oh, I see. I didn't realise I was dealing with a zealot and you had a religious belief incongruent with your own measurements. My bad. I didn't realise.
Yeah, Nathan, it's just like the guy in chat as well. We got navigate where with today. How are we reifying measurements to measure flat Earth today? Lord, these people.
So reifying means making something real that isn't real. That's reification. When you describe something being measured, you're not if you run a tape measure down a table and then shout out the number, you're going to have the person that's writing it down go, don't give me the reification for the table. What are you, some sort of... You're like, no, it's just the measurement. What a mile is when you talk about Earth, having measured it, a mile's flat. What's that, me reifying it? That's a new one on me. Just because it's flat and measured as such doesn't mean it's flat. Are we going to reify the flat Earth measurements into reality? Yeah, they're measurements. They are reality. That's how we've measured it in reality.
Exactly. Yep. The measurements is to know, and we know how we measure it. Yeah, we know who you are. We're not going to play with you today.
Who is it?
You know who the crew is from. Let's just give it a little hint. It's from that crew that says pi equals 2 and the real globe.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of clowns in this community. Like I say, we're climbing our way out from scumbags that make absolutely horrendously idiotic assertions like the world has an etheric background that's capable of supplying free energy. We also have idiots that say that pi equals 2 and that you can do nothing with angles. I mean, okay. I mean, you can't. Hopefully people won't write us off based on the company we keep. You know, we've spent so long covered in slime and scum. And, you know, the slime and scum seems to want to dribble its way off us slowly when we've climbed out of this pond. Let's just talk to them like little children. No, lads, pi doesn't equal 2. You know, get a grip.
Well, I'm going to agree. Sure, demonstrate an angle or distance automatically implies flat Earth? Yes. How about that? Distance? Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah, like distance that's been measured in miles. It's a convention. I understand that just because things are utilised in a conventional manner doesn't necessarily mean that they are real. Like, no, if I say that there's 5 miles of anything in distance terminology, I mean, ipso facto, that convention requires that distance to be horizontal and linear. That's what a mile is when referencing it to a measurement of the surface. But does that mean that there's a line? If I draw one on the map, does that mean that there's a giant score line through the world? No, that would be reification. To suggest that a latitude line exists in physical terminology, that circle of equal elevation, that's a flat Earth measurement of Polaris, doesn't physically exist. There is no circle. If you suggest that there is a line of latitude, then that's reification. But to say I measured between the ground and the star, here's the number on an angle. You don't go, well, that's reification. No, it's a measurement. I just measured it. Here's the number. Do you want it or not? Well, I don't know. You know, we're out here in this lifeboat, and if we can find where the fuck we are, we might not die. But I don't like the fact that you're reifying this. What are you fucking on about? Just write the number down and the time that we took it. You stupid clown. Right, hands up. Who votes we throw Bev over the side of this boat? I say aye, because he's going to get us killed. Because he's saying we can't do anything with this angle, and then we're reifying.
Raise up your hand. They'll be looking at him that way to do it.
Yep. If we were in a scenario where our life depended on measuring an angle, the man who says you can do nothing with the angle that potentially saves your life is the first person to be strangled and thrown over the edge of the boat. That's what would happen to Bev. Somebody would be strangling him while people were writing down numbers and taking the time. They were just disposing of his corpse. That's what happened to you, Bev. Now, you may not like that awful reality, but in a life and death circumstance, you know, like when you crash, people will eat other people. There's been movies made about it. That's what they'll do to you. You don't have to like it, right? And while they're gnawing on your buttocks, you can be screaming, pi equals 2!
Yeah, you can do bleep all with an angle. Yikes.
Well, what they could do is, Nathan, like you said on the show before, if you're able to get on here, obviously you're not banned, join the live stream. You know, come click on, join the show. Because I'm not going to read out your nonsense anymore.
I mean, while we do have an open door, anybody's welcome to join in, but I don't want to encourage these people. They're unpleasant. Like I say, it's an open door. Sometimes you can't control who comes in the bar and orders a drink. But would I encourage the dweebs and idiots? Not really. This person isn't pleasant company, is he?
That's true. I didn't think about that, right? You're not going to go outside because you got a bar and start inviting idiots in there that are just going to give, you a hard time. Why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
I take it back.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, I mean, the door is always open. I'm not going to deny that this is an open show, because it is. It always has been, ever since its inception. You know, people can just wander in. You know, and there's very little that puts up an obstacle to prevent that from happening. I mean, you could literally be all the way south. That's a horizontal orientation, directionality derived from north, and absolute direction that's measured off a flat plane with things like Polaris to create areas of equal altitude. That absolute fact of directionality, you could be as far south as perceived you could be, measuring a flat Earth for a sun angle, and still be able to phone into the show. You could still do that. You know, it's not like there's any barriers in terms of stopping people from coming into this show, and they have. You know, they literally contacted me to point out that there's no guns in Antarctica, you know, to cope with the fact that they're measuring a flat there. You know, so even via Starlink, you can get in touch and get on the show. It's not difficult. Now, again, that was a deeply unpleasant individual. You know, somebody that suggests I beat my kids, that's reported me to YouTube. These are unpleasant people. Like, I wouldn't want to be in their company. But, you know, I wouldn't ascribe the same sort of fate as I would to somebody who suggests you can't do anything with an angle. I mean, at least that particular individual was out proving Earth's flat by measuring it that way. Other individuals are so retarded that they suggest you can't do anything with an angle. You're like, that's idiotic. Seriously, come on, get a grip.
Yeah,
Anyway.
we like to hang out with people that are like-minded. It's not that you could have a different opinion. That's fine, but it's the way you bring it. And if you act like an idiot, you're going to be treated like an idiot. And it's just the way it is in life. Treat people accordingly.
Indeed. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
And when they shut me off, it was my own fault, because what I do is I ask for an extension. Every electric bill, as soon as it comes, I immediately call them and ask them for an extension. And I got to juggle like the 2 pays that my son and my wife get. So I juggle it and they give me 2 weeks and then I'm able to pay that. So it was actually my fault that I got shut off because I forgot to call and get an extension. But, and the electric bills are insane. I mean, geez, I do hope with it finds free energy.
Don't want new.
Remember
We
what?
don't want free energy. We want free land. Hopefully in
Yeah.
the sky.
Well, remember when that was the first thing? Like they were mocking us, like, you measure it flat. Some people want to stay there. We want to expand. We want to find out things. We want to discover free energy because they're hiding it. Hiding it. Oh,
Who? Who's they? Do they have a postcode? Can I send them a letter? What evidence have you got that they've got it? What evidence have you got that they're hiding it? What evidence have you got that they exist? Why am I asking? I don't even care. I just know I've got a really high electricity bill too.
it's really pathetic though because they priced out the common man. It's obvious to a duck what they did. It's pathetic. It's like everything is high. I can imagine in the UK, you must have some really high bills, right?
Yes.
I remember that movie, An American Werewolf in London, when he's with the nurse and she's taking him home and they stop at the market. And he's just amazed at how they're ringing it up, how much everything is. And he's like, how the heck do you do it? She said, very carefully. So, and that was back in the 80s.
In the UK, Neil, we've got some of the highest prices, which is mad considering we've got loads of resources in the North Sea. But because of the net zero push, we're buying it from other countries who come to the North Sea and sell our energy back to us for a premium. It's mad.
And let's not even get it. Let's not even discuss groceries. Forget it. But that's what they are doing. Who's they? All right, the people in power, the political leaders. They're the ones that dictate what's going on. They're the ones that dictate the prices of things. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot that goes into it, but I still hold myself responsible. I should have done things differently when I was a younger man. I should have prepared. I don't blame them. I blame me. Because if people, all right, say the system is the way they do, it's the man that holding everybody down, then how come people become successful? How come people that come out of ghettos become successful? Right? That would be for everybody. No one would be successful if that was the case. But there are people. I know a person that took a job at McDonald's, started out as freaking doing the French fries or something, and became a manager, and he owns 10 freaking McDonald's now. Anything you want to do, you just got to be diligent in it. You can rise above it. I simply did not. I wasted my years. My fault, my responsibility. I was the architect of my existence. Hey, like that, Len.
Good stuff.
Len was showing me some of his songs that he wrote back in the day, and he had one titled "Architects of Our Existence," of our own existence. It's pretty cool. That was his frame of mind back then. I don't know if he still holds the same belief system, but it is interesting because we are responsible for what we do. We can't blame other people. Can't blame organizations.
Nathan, I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of a cult Australian movie called Bad Boy Bubby, but there's a monologue in the middle of that, and the song's based around that, basically.
The only Australian movie I seen that bugged me out was a movie called Funny Games. It's these two sick kids, they're brothers, and they're basically murderers. They prey on like these rich freaking people that maybe they have a summer home, and they go visit their summer home, and the kids come in and they want to borrow some eggs, right? They look like two nice little rich boys, but they're sadistic killers. Nobody heard of that movie, Funny Games?
No.
Nope.
What's the name? What's the name is in that? The one that was in The Ring. I always forget her name. The blonde. She's an Australian actor. Sort of looks like Nicole Kidman in a way. She was also in the new King Kong. I forgot her name. I always forget her name.
Your sentiment reminds me of the song from Willy Wonka. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Think you want to do it, want to change the world, there's nothing to it.
That was in Willy Wonka?
Yeah.
The only thing I remember from Willy Wonka was the Oompas. They used to scare the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah, in the second verse it says, "We'll begin with a spin, travelling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation."
Ooh, that's deep. One time I was in Mexico on a mission trip, and I brought my two daughters at the time. They were young. They were like 10 and 11 years old, right? And you'd go there, and you'd go from Texas, and you'd go right into Reynosa, Mexico, very impoverished part of Mexico. As you're walking across the bridge, people got containers, like bleach containers, cut open, and tied to sticks, and they're raising the sticks up to the bridge you walk over, for money, asking for money. So anyway, we get in there, and what we did was we would build like little shacks for houses, wood framed 1-room houses, and paint them blue, and that would identify the church that was there and did their little thing. And I was hanging out with this guy Mark Jackson from Minnesota. He was a really funny guy. So my daughter comes up to me when we're getting ready to go from the complex we stood on in Texas to Reynosa, Mexico. And she said, "Dad, how long is time?" She meant to say something else, but the guy Mark was like, "Whoa, that's deep. I'm out of here." Oh, man. How long is time? She meant to say how long we're going to be there, because she didn't like it at all, my younger daughter. It was funny. These are a tough crowd, boy.
Time's a flat earth prerequisite. Yeah, tomorrow we'll cover why we feel it's necessary to convert people.
Oh, I like that. Let's get ahead of it. Got a whole night to think about it. Why do we feel it's necessary to convert people? Let me get in touch with Jen.
You'll find him hopping about each server.
Yeah, but to add to that, why is there any need to convert anyone? Because Jin's that good at converting. He's excellent at it, and his conversion rate is untouched, allegedly. Thank you very much. Actually, is there anyone left to convert? Because Jin's already converted everyone.
No, what's to convert when you're already standing on the horizontal plane of our flat Earth? And that's how anyone that does measure the Earth will be measuring it flat from it, for aviation and navigation and surveying, building upon the Earth and how we charted it, so you don't things like die, get to enjoy it. You taking your trip to somewhere from A to B, things like that,
I know, so they can't lie to us anymore.
I see. So then you can have the upper hand from the mysterious hidden hand.
No, I can have the northern hand.
Oh, that's how it's all going down, huh?
No, that would be going south.
Oh, okay. Gotcha there. Gotcha.
By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but I caught a guy in the chat that hangs with thieves. Got rid of him real quick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, who was that?
At Jason.
Another heartbreaker, but yeah, Fence Straddler. Gee.
One mind, one spirit. You're next.
I don't know who these are.
These are people that frequent your chat, but they can't make a decision on what a thief is. Right?
What makes
And
you
I
think that?
personally don't want to hang out with people like that. You tell me to stop, I'll stop.
Well, no. How do you know that's the case?
I got screenshots of them in his chat, palling it up with them. Oh, got a copy of your book, buying 2 more. Oh, yeah, nice.
Right, today's show is going to be called Free Energy.
That's some clickbait there, boy.
Wow, the show's got a 33 in the number.
There you go. I knew you were a Mason.
There it is. Hoax code. Been waiting until 25:33 just to expose the absurdity of free energy, to distract from the fact that it's real. They'll never know. Oh shit, am I off mute?
It's about time you shared that esoteric knowledge.
Oh, shoot, am I off mood?
I hope we do refine the rhetoric, because I'm being sincere when I say that it does feel very inconsistent. The message feels slightly disjointed. It's inconsequential. We don't matter. It's measured flat anyway. Wouldn't matter if we were arguing about a ball. The ball's based on flat Earth anyway, so who cares? Well, why do you care? That's a good question. I've got a YouTube channel. Yeah, but you can't base your YouTube channel on telling people how important it is to not care about something. That's completely backwards.
Yeah, but this is the. And listen, Nathan, we can't help the progression. This is the progression, right? This is what it's led to. These are the. How do you say it? These are the steps that we've taken. It's a natural progression that we took. We didn't plan any next move or what are we going to bring out next, did we? Because I don't remember.
Yeah. Strength in numbers. We can get it right. On time. We are a part of the Rhythm Nation. Are you there, Craig?
Yeah,
One sec. You there? Really not. Anyone remember how Rhythm Nation messed up a load of computers?
no.
So Rhythm Nation, when it came out, had a particular frequency in the song that if played on a laptop would vibrate the hard drive and corrupt it and shut down the computer, destroying it in the process, just by playing a song, a very specific song, Rhythm Nation, by Janet Jackson. Yeah, so it would balls up laptops.
Are you serious? You can show the song actually having that effect?
Yes, you could play the song on a laptop and it would destroy it. That's correct.
Wow.
They had to introduce like a workaround for laptops where they would just cancel out that very specific frequency so it would never come through the speakers.
So there's a particular frequency from the song that will destroy the laptops and how they function. Wow.
Yeah, so it was 84.2 hertz. Looked it up. Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation from 1989 contained a specific bass frequency that matched the natural resonant frequency of certain 5400 RPM hard drives used in laptops in around 2005, causing them to crash. The problem frequency being the song's bass line, which contains a noticeable peak at approximately 84.2 hertz. Described as a resonance trigger, but only for specific hard drives, the 2.5-inch 5400 RPM drives found in laptops. Normally this wouldn't be a problem, but because, like a lot of music at the time, they'd speed it up, they'd pitch up the music, because it's got a more of a... I'm paraphrasing this from what I'm reading. When you pitch any music up slightly, it is more uplifting. So you have a natural frequency that things are tuned to. Your piano's tuned to a certain type of frequency range, and with notes at certain frequencies. Well, if you speed the tape recorder up, for example, it increases the pitch, but that makes the tone and vibe of the song feel more uplifting. So when they'd play an E, which is typically 82 hertz, pitched up, it was 87.5, that just happened to match the frequency of the hard drives, ballsing them up in the process.
any other song known to do this?
No, it's just Rhythm Nation. Because typically you wouldn't hit that frequency. It's just wherever they sped up the tape recorder to, just by pure chance, happened to hit that frequency on the E note. I was going to ask Craig about it as he runs a computer shop. I doubt very much he ever had any 2005 laptops come in with that particular issue. But he might have done, you never know. I was just playing Janet Jackson and my computer stopped working. Can you help me?
Yeah, that would be an odd request. Yeah, just on the previous point, it's like you're enjoying getting from A to B, from our flat Earth. Just be at peace with it. Yeah, there's still be like we had in the chat. Folks on argue over it being an infinite plane and it's still a reification and. Oh, you don't have a measurement, and measurements are not measurements. You just separate yourself from those folks if they just want to be belligerent. Nah.
We are probably those folks, right? So it is kind of hypocritical for us to say we need to detach ourselves from it. But it's more like growing up. You know what I mean? There's a tendency for people in this particular corner of the internet we call Flat Earth to want it to be a conspiracy because conspiracies are exciting. So they want to be the disseminator of the information about the hidden lands. And that excites them. So on the one hand, you think, I totally get it. I understand why you want to talk about how there's hidden lands and that they're lying to us and it's being hidden from us and blah, blah, blah. Just don't think, unless there's actually substantive evidence to show that's the case, I just don't believe it. And given that we've got measurements to depend upon now, we don't have to base anything we do on belief anymore. It seems like a bum move to do. Why would you, when you've got absolutely stone-cold facts in a case that are indisputable and held up as true by both sides, why introduce speculation into your case if you've got a stone-cold, watertight case that's never going to lose? Well, that's why we're here. Because there's a stone cold, tight as can be case for Earth being measured flat, because it is. Now, because that's the case, that's why we need to be here to make it speculative. So, we're part of the problem, as far as I'm concerned.
I like the way you said that. I'd say more like we matured, right? We grew and we matured. And I agree. We got a watertight case. But sometimes, when they say you talk too much, sometimes you could hurt your case, but we don't even have a case. We're just saying how it's measured. Now, they're going to come and say, oh, you've measured it? So how big is it, Nathan?
I mean, there is a response to these questions, if you're sharp enough. When you say something's been measured flat, that doesn't denote a physical size, that denotes the aspect of the measurement. Flatness, right? That's not a value. That's not a number in terms of square footage. But the measurement itself will be in square foot. Well, how big is it? What, in square foot? Well, if we're deciding whether or not it's flat, the fact that you can ascribe square footage to it at all is because there's a prerequisite flat Earth measurement process that gives you square feet. Square feet are flat.
Well, that's all I'm getting at. Yeah, just to be thankful that that's just how it is. And so be it. If you want to get into other detail and other things that measure the Earth flat, then you can go from there.
Or you could
to butt heads about.
Or you could go out and you tell us. Go charter a boat and go out and you find out just how big it is. Go ahead. We'll be here to take the report, but we're just telling you that it's flat, mate. What I believe is, what I think is, the people that are asking how big it is, or that there's an infinite plane, it's because they're not sure yet. They don't know. They have a belief, but they don't have a knowledge. Because before they thought they had a knowledge that it was a certain size, and that certain size was a globe. So now, to counteract that, you got to tell me the size of this flat Earth. That's what I hear.
Yeah, now you're going into, replacement theory. It's like, well, I got to come up with something to replace what the globe zealotry says about everything. I got to come up with these values and this situation and a replacement for, a force that you can, that's not a force, but you can think of as a force, and, dielectric, acceleration and attraction of magnetism through the perturbation of, the medium and all that other stuff. Well, yeah.
Well, that's how he asked it, though. It's funny you say theory, because that's what he said. What do you guys think about the infinite plane theory? So I just said it has nothing to do with science. But there you go again. Trying to turn measurements, geography into science. Are you not listening?
And that's the part of the appreciation, and to be humble, like, what Nathan was getting at too. It's like, okay, I'm not going to lambaste them, but there comes a point where it's just peaceful that the Earth's measured flat. You give them the measurements, and like, that's it. But yeah, I mean, constantly with the what if and the what if. Humbly, I've stated it before, to actually stick to what you can prove. Yeah, okay, you charter out, but you're still going to be doing the same thing. You charter out to more lands. What did they do? Oh yeah, they were still measuring the Earth flat.
Yeah, I'm not against. Listen, I'm not against people freaking what do you call it? Journeying out, or what's the word I'm looking for? I just had it. If you're going to be those that want to discover things,
Explorer.
if you want to explore, go ahead. Like I said, we'll be right here, and you can come back and give us a report. We'd love to hear it.
I don't care.
Come on, Nathan. You wouldn't love to hear if somebody came back and said, "Yo, I went through Antarctica. You wouldn't believe how far I was able to go, and I found hot springs. Here's my pictures."
I mean, maybe. Is there some tangible benefit?
All right, gents. You have a beautiful day.
Will do.
See you later. CC's in the same position we're all in. He's looking for work too.
Right, well, I'll hang around for another 10 or 15 minutes, then I'll round out if the conversation dries up completely.
Yeah, it's been a tough crowd lately. I mean, we used to have long after shows, Uncut after shows, because we were still working things out, right? Still arguing about gas fresh without containment, talking about things, and what was that one thing? Forgot how it was phrased. Structural support, things like that. We would work through those things. Now there's like nothing to work through. What do you work through? A measurement? How do you do that?
Yeah, all they were angles that people could work on us from.
I mean, those were good times. We worked we worked a lot of things out, but now we're here.
Sure, but there's always an attempt to try and work an angle against what we're saying. Now, even now, with a Discord full of people, there aren't any angles left open, and people who hear or have a memory of the people who've come past us in the last, I don't know, let's say 12 months, they're going to recognise that in every single example of any interaction with us, there's always a risk that you're going to have your presentation brought back to a flat earth prerequisite. If you're on the ball side, there's no way you're going to want to interact with us. It doesn't change that there's plenty of people who are listening to the show that are very grateful for what we're doing. I wouldn't survive if that wasn't the case, but yeah, there's very little opposition to be had from us anymore, so it's no sport. Like getting your ass handed to you every single time you come across somebody is not going to entice you to keep interacting with them in the same way we're not enticed to interact with these people who are particularly unpleasant.
Right. You get guys like that Gucci that'll come in here and say, you need to go to worldwide debates. What's happening over there? What he's saying is this ball is over there and he wants you to rip them apart. That's basically what he's saying, Sad thing is, though, Nathan, people love that. They friggin' love it.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
I mean, I did too before the measurement, right? Before we came to understanding that, holy shoot, you need a flat plane of reference for anything pertaining to measurements and what the Earth is. So, yeah, before that, maybe. But now, with the knowledge we have now, to me, it seems like you're going backwards if you do that. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, you would be going backwards.
We got to continually follow the natural progression of things. What are we waiting for now? We all know what we're waiting for. We're waiting for Nathan's book to hit the presses, right? To hit, I say, mainstream. Because I do have a feeling that it's going to hit mainstream. I don't know why. I just have that feeling. And, we'll have a lot to talk about then. But in the meantime, what do? You go over day in and day out. I work this measured because there are still people that think that it's a reification. Don't ask me how a measurement is a reification, but these are the things that are being said. But these same people, what do we call them? They pat themselves on the back. And they claim to be like these intellectuals, as if measuring things makes you smart. But that's where we're at right now. realizing what we are.
I mean, I just think we'll get an abundance of normies that don't know the dispute coming and asking old questions.
Yeah, that's always going to be the case. Like, because think about it, when you first come across it, you like, you get hit with it, and you're like, well, how does this work? How does that work? What about the seasons? You know, you get hit with all of that, and it's out of ignorance, really, because you're still comparing your new information with how the old information is. Well, the ball has it doing this. So how do we say it works? You know, so we're always going to get hit with that. But if we could just penetrate, cut right through everything to the measurement, where they comprehend what a measurement is, what is required to take any measurement, you could eliminate all of that stuff. And again, some people think it's more important to prove that the Earth is not spinning than demonstrate how it's measured. Go figure.
Yeah, well, as long as we're all prepared for the normies to turn up.
Oh, we're prepared. Are you prepared?
I think I'll be all right.
You're holding on to that whole year experience. I mean, what can you say? You can just answer their questions, right? You're going to have regular normies showing up that are genuinely inquiring, and then you're going to have the ones that are coming, because they have a belief system, and they want to challenge you on what they think is your belief system.
How many flatties do you think you've offended with the whole Batman t-shirt reference? Because I know there's probably a few that have Batman t-shirts.
I don't think I've offended flatties, have I?
There's most definitely some flatties with Batman t-shirts. I'll know that for a fact. Not me, though.
You think the Batman t-shirts offended some flatties, eh?
Certainly
Well, who's
possible.
Batman for you?
I mean, if I have, I have.
Adam West. Batman for me is Slapstick.
Who?
It's the first Batman I saw. Slapstick Adam West, the old school ones where he's got his shark repellent spray and all that kind of jazz.
Boy, the stuff that went on in those trailers. You ever read about some of that stuff? Woo! A kid show, huh?
Back in the day with Adam West.
He's a womanizer, Adam West, which I hear about Mark Sargent, too. He's a married woman chaser. Chasing after married women. Fawns all over them. Batman for me is Michael Keaton. If you're talking about the movies. I'm a Christian Bale. I'm Batman. No, I'm Batman.
I mean, if by extension the flatties are the Batman t-shirt wearers, then in my humble opinion, those are the people that we've also been bracing against recently as well. That want to sniff their own farts, but just for different reasons. Like, they've come to the subject of heliocentrism through Flat Earth, and now they can tell other Batman t-shirt wearing wankers how much smarter they are about heliocentrism. Neil was describing them the other day. Oh, don't you know how fast you spin? Well, how are they any different or any better than the dweebs? They're not. They're just as dweeby, aren't they? It's only a metaphor. It's like a metaphor for thinking that you're going to change the world. And there's plenty of flat earthers that are like that, isn't there? I'm going to change the world by telling them it's flat. Like, okay, so you think you're a vigilante for justice like Batman then?
I missed that last part you said.
Hey, there's plenty of flatties that are just like the heliocentric dweebs.
Definitely.
Right.
Of course. More probably. When you skip right past the flat earth prerequisites, as you say, just to point out to a guy and you make him stand by his claim, because when the guy tries to prove his claim, in doing so, the plane will be rotating. But to me, that's silly. Right? Why would you pass? You're in something that's called a debate, right? This is what they're calling it on other servers. Somebody comes in and in proving their claim, they're using flat earth measurements. Where would we go with that? We would hold them right to the measurements we go to. End the story. Ends the debate. There is no debate. Move on. No. They would stop that and try to make the guy prove his claim that planes take a curved path. Because in doing so, he's going to have his plane rotating. And he's going to look like a fool. Okay. I got to go. And then when pitch data is brought up, a certain individual comes in and says, no, we don't have the pitch data. Nobody has the real pitch data. Nobody can get that. Oh, really? That's not a baller saying that. That's a flat earther saying that. That there's no way we as common folk can get the actual pitch data. Only the professionals can get that information. How's everything else going, Nathan? Your wife enjoying the free time now that she doesn't have to stress editing a book?
Yes, very much so.
Cool. Got that done pretty quick though. I gotta give it to you. Got busy and got it done.
Yeah, it's hard work.
Makes me wonder.
Wonder what?
What was taking so freaking long?
The people who were helping me were delaying so they could steal from me, Neil.
Right at the start. And I could prove it. Just makes me feel retarded and stupid.
Nah, you can't feel stupid. People get conned all the time. Just have to take the L and move on.
Well, I'll fill in some dead air. When Skep was at my house, Skeptic 936, he was saying that, how do we know that they're not agents? Because he's a conspiratorial. He told me, he says, I'm the biggest conspiracy theorist there is, right? He got into all that free man thing. I mean, he's got ID, and he's not an American citizen and the whole nine. Anyway, he was saying, how do we know? Because it seems to me like that's the perfect thing. Nate's coming out with a book. These guys had to reveal who they were. And I said, I think Nathan met Adam. I think they've had face-to-face conversations. Not to say that that doesn't mean anything. It could be an agent, mean them face-to-face, but I don't think that's the case. I just think they're scumbags. Because he seems to think that this was designed, and it's all designed to stop what you're coming out with. This measured flat. This needs to be stopped. Other books will come out that talk about other things, but this certain rhetoric needs to be stopped. Yeah, I agree 100%. Neil Skep is right on with that.
Yes, I agree, Neil, 100%.
Yeah, and the fact that he was military, so that's just the way the guy's thinking. And I don't know if he's wrong. I don't know if he's right. All I know is what was done. And what was done was grimy, so that's basically it.
Yeah, that's all I can assess. How scummy were they? Very. How did they achieve it? Well, by appealing to me needing to raise more money to keep my family's position secure. So, yeah. On the offerance of assistance help support my family, where other people just give me money. They've gone, no, we won't give you money, we'll give you help with the book. Okay, that seems fair. You don't want to help me with money, seems strange. But there we go. But they didn't. They just wanted to steal from me. But like I say, there's more to people's desires than money. Like, if you've got money, which I would assume both of those two individuals, they're not struggling like I'm struggling. But when somebody's struggling, then they're weak. Then they can be taken advantage of. Not for money. Yes, the end result is that they can market something, can make money from it. But that's not what they wanted. Right? They wanted a legacy. It's like, well, you haven't built up enough like reputation to have a legacy. Oh, just steal yours. That's what they wanted. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, fair enough. If that's what you want to be, if my achievements are so grandiose that you feel that it's necessary to build a story around the structure that I created on my show, then I can only be flattered. I mean, it just makes me perceive you as wanting to be a little mini-me. But that's their bag, you know. Still on the live show, there's plenty of people who will have listened to what I said on today's show about the progression that we've come from and where we are now, and have a feeling of high nostalgia, like a feeling that gives you goosebumps. And you go, well, yeah, you as the audience member listening to that are part of it. But there's certain people, like you say, that are in the audience that you're excluding because you're like, you're now associated with thieves, so you're going to be excluded from this group. If they turn around and go, oh, I didn't know. Like, well, okay. Well, you're excluded through ignorance then, aren't you? But ultimately speaking, there's a line that's drawn in the sand when somebody gets cheated, me. And there's going to be a certain amount of people that support me in what I do, regardless of how badly cheated I've been. But they still, in the case of you, Neil, feel wronged when other people support the people who've cheated me. Because I represent a group. Well, by representation, people, by extension, also feel cheated. I totally get it. It's been explained to me multiple times. I get it. Because at first you're like, well, why would you feel the need to support me? I get it. I've got a YouTube channel and you learn about Earth being flat there. But why, by extension, does that make you feel so riled when I've been cheated? I'll take the L, no worries. You know, more fool me, I should have perceived that the so-called help was actually a ruse to build confidence to steal valor. I didn't see it. And I paid with a fifth draft. It meant more work. It meant lost time. But so be it. You know, the by provenance argument will hold up in the meantime to justify the loss in time. The eventual revenue stream that the book does generate will be presumably better or higher if I only want to assess it on its monetary value, for the book being better, having gone through a whole round of more drafts because of its departure from my possession, you know, because of a couple of thieves. But they didn't want money. You know, they might generate some revenue from it, but that isn't what they wanted. They kept saying what they wanted while they were trying to extort co-authorship from my book, which they never got. So they took the next best thing, which was to steal the material that they've been working on my behalf, with me in their company, under my supervision, and publish that with a thin veneer of being a story about some spinster. And you're like, okay, if you want to take, if it means that much to you that becomes your swan song, then that speaks volumes. Anybody who's on the inside knows that their quote-unquote swan song is tarnished, heavily tarnished. Now, some people don't mind buying tarnished goods. What's that? It's got a big dent in it. I don't mind. You're like, okay, fair enough. But forever will you be defending the stolen valor and the stolen material, and, you know, you said earlier that there's a demand to release information, release the tapes, you say? You're like, yeah. Me, I've moved on, I don't care about what they're doing anymore, but they're very concerned about what I've got in my possession. You're like, yeah, of course you are. Yeah? That speaks volumes. You're worried about what I'm doing, what I've got, what I'm publishing. Of course you are. You want to be me. So, yeah, the fact that you're still a little mini-me doesn't change what's happened. You've been excluded from a group. The group will eventually forget you. That's just how it works.
We have forgotten him. I told him he's been terminated a long time ago. He just keeps respawning. Remember how the Globers would respawn? He keeps respawning and demanding the same thing. And with that demanding of a certain hate, he has people deceived. So they could stay over there as far as I'm concerned. If you buy that bullshit, then you deserve to hang out with them. Just don't come hang out with me. I don't want to be around no bullshitters. I don't want to be around people that support thieves. I don't want to be around them. Well, I kind of have a little respect for Jin. Jin made his decision, but he hasn't been back yet. He doesn't come into the chat, and he doesn't come try to join the room. Right? At least I can respect that. Don't play the fence like nothing's happened. And, no, I just like the information they're getting out. So what's the problem?
Like kids like Taylor Swift, and they play it quite frequently. And on the most recent album, there's a song called Actually Sweet. I think it's called that. I don't know the name of the song. Let's have a look. Actually Romantic. It's called Actually Romantic, right? And it describes one of her haters. She's explaining with it throughout the song that the only way you can surmise this admittedly negative attention that's being poured into her is that it's comparable to somebody who's got a romantic infatuation with her. That's how she compares it. Just read the chorus. But it's actually sweet, all the time you've spent on me. It's honestly wild, all the effort you've put in. It's actually romantic. I've got to hand it to you. No man has ever loved me like you do. She's describing somebody who hates her. Yeah?
Wow.
But she's pointing out that the negative attention is just as beneficial. It's narcissistic. I think it was Aleister Crowley, who said a similar sort of thing when he was describing getting negative attention in the press and saying the only thing that's worse than negative attention is no attention. So having people critique, despise, ridicule, mock, condemn what you've done, in this case, stealing from me, is just attention. That's all it is. So the more effort they put into demanding things of me, pretending to be me, absorbing various aspects of my story and my life, claiming credit for things I've done, you're like, all you're doing is pouring more and more effort into me, which seems like infatuation. Sad. But it generates attention, negative attention. Now, I've described this to you previously. Negative narcissistic supply. It's no different when a narcissist devalues what they previously saw as their property through loss. They are absorbing somebody else's persona, demeanour, character traits, achievements, history. Now, when that person leaves their company, no longer imparts the positive narcissistic supply on them, that person needs immediate devaluement. And the general result of that devaluement is the negative narcissistic supply that they receive in tow. Now, the only thing that hurts people like that, truly hurts them, is no supply. Indifference. But highlighting that the attention that's being poured in to me specifically at the moment is just kind of sad, is just as valuable a narcissistic supply as praise. As weird as that sounds, attention is attention. A similar vein would be to say there's no such thing as bad publicity. That works on the same psychology. It's entirely narcissistic, but it works on the same philosophy.
That's correct. I hear you. You know, Taylor Swift is third or fourth generation money comes from a family of bankers. I'm not saying she doesn't have talent, don't get me wrong. But she also had the money to get going.
I don't doubt it. Yes, it doesn't surprise me that the con men who've cheated me are now slightly obsessed with me. That comes as no surprise.
Obsessed. They're demanding. They're making demands out of you. How you like that?
Like I say, I don't care. Oh yeah, demanding, I don't care.
And then in the same breath, he goes, believe me, you will not hear any release tapes. He knows better.
Very amusing.
It's rather hilarious. He's demanding to release the tips that'll get his bum chum into hot water as well. I think he's a bit deluded there.
Maybe that's what he wants to do. Maybe he wants to put his co-author in prison. I don't know. Funny how things work, but you know, if you stab Nathan in the back, you better watch out, Adam. Knife could be coming your way. And the other thing you said, I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. You said he wanted a legacy. Well, I thought he had one. He was working on one. He had his own show, and he was part of the panel on Flat Earth Debate. I mean, what's wrong with that? People knew you from that. They respected you. Refracted wrote a wonderful letter of advice. And in that letter, he's telling him how he respected him, and he can no longer have that same respect if he continues to go down the path he's going down. So, you know, they had a little something. People knew who they were. He was developing his legacy. So, I don't know. To me, it's just greed and pride, and he wanted more than what they were, let's say, worth. Maybe? Is that the proper word? Maybe.
Yeah. The significance level was relative to their input and effort, and that wasn't satisfactory. They wanted more notoriety. You know, they want to be remembered forever. You know, it was very telling when they said they wanted my book to be their swan song. Like, okay, I mean, you've achieved what you wanted if that's what you wanted. Your swan song is that of theft and basing a story around somebody who you stole work from that you were working for, offering help to. I mean, that's your legacy now, which is sad. I mean, spending your entire time demanding things of somebody who's cut you off from their life is kind of pathetic also. What's that? You're demanding what? I can't hear you. You're fading into obscurity too quickly. Sorry, what did you want? Can't hear you. Don't care. These people resurface from time to time. Other individuals do it. They want to be marked in the annals of history like they've got some significance. And I have no sympathy or empathy for these people anymore. And I'm turning the finger of insignificance on myself and going, yeah, it don't matter what I say, it's measured flat anyway. The whole purpose of doing this was to reach a point where we had a proof of Earth being flat, and it was right in front of us the entire time. In fact, realising that silver bullet is only cause to have a bit of introspection and assess how ignorant you were the whole time. That's all it really does. Well, while we're doing that, there's people going, I want more credit! More credit for what? Not noticing how flat it was measured the whole time. Distance to the oil rigs are flat. What's that? Do we need some complexity in the modus tollens? No, I just feel embarrassed that we didn't notice that the distance that we'd got measured to the rigs was flat. I could have ended it there. It would have been a lot simpler to digest. What's that? You want marking in the annals of history? Okay. I mean, maybe if you steal from another creator and put your name and the story of some spinster over the top of it, that'll get you marked in the annals of history. I mean, if that's your belief, then more power to you. I'm flattered that you'd want to base a swan song for you on my achievements. I mean, fine. Like I say, I'm flattered. But as far as I'm concerned, people and their information on YouTube is almost disposable. I mean, there's various different people that were fading out of prevalence when I came to this subject, and their names were seemingly etched into history. You move on 10 years, nobody's talking about them, and nobody cares about them, and they have been forgotten. That's just how it works. The world's a fickle place. But in wanting to be, commemorated and memorized and nailed down into the annals of history, you just end up becoming a charlatan and a thief and a con man. You're like, that isn't how you get, that isn't the way you should be trying to get yourself remembered. That's not the right way to go about it. You get remembered by your actions. Your actions speak to who you are. Like I say, I'm past caring. It doesn't really concern me too much. Like the Gautier song, now you're just somebody I used to know. What you demand of me, what you suggest I should do in the future is utterly inconsequential to me. Couldn't care less what you want from me. So once I've cut you out of my life, you then get to walk away with what you've got. What you managed to grab a few gems off the shelves as you were being kicked out. Good for you. Keep them. By gems, in this case, it's just housekeeping questions. Like, you had to rephrase them. How sad. Carefully phrased questions that everybody contributed to their phraseology through debate and discussion, admittedly on my show, has had to be paraphrased by the thieves. You're like, why? Did you not come up with them? No, you had to paraphrase them into different terms. Why? What, so you don't get sued? How sad that you would need to adjust and make alterations to that which was firmly put in place on this show because you've stolen it. It's just yet another thin veneer. Like, the housekeeping questions are what they are, but if I just alter them a little bit in their phraseology, they're mine now. Copyright, look, here's my name under them. Okay, I mean, you can tell yourself that. Why did you need to subtly alter the phraseology? Very telling.
I taught him everything he knows.
Then, projection. So, in the case of John Stunyer, I convinced him to start a YouTube show. He was a commenter. Once he was convinced to produce a show, or produce YouTube videos of any description on his own channel, I then produced a launch video for his channel and explained to him how to operate OBS. I then sat down with him and taught him how to do it, set up the program, downloaded all of the necessary software to make it work, and set him on his way. So when people say, I taught him everything he knew, what are you talking about? Like, no, it's just projection. The story of you involves me teaching you how to be a YouTuber. Setting you up with a show and setting you up with a channel, then producing a show that was gifted to you called Ballbusters. Now that's the actual story. But if you were trying to set yourself up as being the arbiter of all things, then having part of your story be, well, this other guy set me up with a channel, taught me how to use it, and then gave me a show that was already in existence on his channel. Like, all of those things point to one thing, don't they? Like,
Oh,
that points to
I see.
They need to start lying. No, I taught that person everything they knew. Really? Did you teach me how to use OBS? Did you teach me how to start a YouTube channel? No. All of those things were in existence before he turned up. With me doing the flat earth thing before he was here. But in his mind, no, my legacy's more important. If it wasn't for me, nobody would be here. You're like, well, okay, that's delusional. But again, as this person fades into obscurity, as they tell themselves lies about their own existence and their own importance in this arena, what's happening while that's going on? I'm going, yeah, we don't really have any significance in this arena. What's that? This person over here is not only saying that they are significant, but they are more significant than everybody who's had an influence on them to create what they created. Okay. I mean, that's really a very different rhetoric. Very self-absorbed and self-important. I mean, that just means you've become the same fart sniffer as we brace against. Good job you're not part of our group anymore, eh? Or we'd have to concern ourselves with such shit. You're not, so we don't. We'll discuss it when it comes up. And when these people pop their head above the parapet in the future, the same criticisms will come their way. Oh, get over yourself.
You know, if you remember, there was a show. Now, he may have said it in a jokingly way, but he was dead serious when he said, I often wonder if I didn't turn up, what would be the state of flat Earth?
So, yeah, again, a very different rhetoric. So on the one hand, you've got an individual saying, if it wasn't for me, there'd be no subject. That's essentially the sentiment. I'm saying we could have all been vaporized by a nuclear bomb and Earth would still be measured flat. The globe belief would still be based on what's on screen for my audience now, the elevation angle measurements. That's how Earth's measured. So where would it be? Well, everyone would still be measuring Earth flat if you hadn't have even existed. Now, the fact that you lack such self-introspection, it's a bit redundant, the fact that you lack such introspection is just a testament to how big-headed some people have become. Now, I remember it being the same sort of sentiment from people like Matt Powerland back in the day. Other people would come along and start talking about the subject, and he'd be very critical of them when they took ownership of the subject and started to claim that they were the most important person. He'd turn around and go, I was here first. Like, yeah, you were. Like, yeah, well, don't forget it. Right. Okay. Why not? You weren't here first, though. There were people doing it in the 70s and the 50s and the 30s. What are you talking about? Oh, you were the most recent first person. Well, that kind of seems a bit less important now we put it in that way.
Yeah, but he stopped making videos. He done it to himself. I mean, he wasn't putting out content on a daily basis, Matt Powerland. And a couple of his videos I did watch, he was redoing the floor with his girl.
Yep. Yeah, like I say...
By the way, the claim... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, all it becomes is an interesting story in a chapter of a book. That's all it becomes.
By the way, the claim is Ballbusters was started by both of you together.
No, only one person was pressing go and scheduling shows, and that was me. Again, when you gift somebody something, when you say, here you go, you can have this. This is yours now. It's like, how could it be already theirs if it's being gifted to them? No. No, I earned money off the Ballbuster show because it was published by me, produced by me. It's because it's mine. Then I gave it away. Here you go, you can have this. Yours now.
When you say you earned money, you're talking about super chats mostly, right?
Yeah. That's what you produce a show for, to earn the revenue from the stream. That's what it's for.
And he knows that, right? Because in this little video that he's, I guess, doing a treatment on, of me spilling the beans on what he done on 24/7 to shame his dumbass, he claims you sent me out. No, you didn't send me out. Proper story is Nathan was trying to put pressure on them to release the freaking draft that they were holding on to. And he was reaching out and saying, if you guys contact them, maybe they'll listen. So nobody sent me out. See, you got delusions that you sent Tent out and gave Tent his marching orders because you think you're this general. Well, I'll agree. You general jerk off. So now that we got that established, when I said that, I meant that you were demanding half the super chats, and Nathan said, take the whole show, run it yourself.
That must really burn then, when they turned around and requested, that's to say they asked me if they could have co-authorship, and I turned around and fired both of them. They must really hate that, because in their minds, they're the controlling force of Flat Earth. You want co-authorship on my book? How dare you? I said you wouldn't get it. Well, you'll give it me or we'll keep the draft. You're fired. Fuck off. Get lost. Never darken my door again.
Yeah, as I said, you were terminated. You didn't pick up your stuff and leave like you were telling your audience.
No, I fired them.
You were fired.
But it's good, anecdotally. People love a little bit of drama, don't they? And that's all this is to me, a little bit of drama. But yes, how interesting. Very, very amusing.
Probably in.
Say again, Len.
Yeah, back to the Batman t-shirt where from seeing Dewey, I think he definitely has one or two in his closet.
Did you catch that, Neil?
No, then you wanna, what do you call it, Bluetooth? I got one or two. That's it. And seeing the size of that property that he's got to work on, I don't think Len's able to speak. That looks like a big area.
Did you see the notes that I made about the book in Master B, Neil?
Did I see the what?
I just gave an update. So last week I was waiting to get a response from Chuck, and then this week I got a response, and I just let the Master B chat panel, whatever you want to call them, know.
I didn't get any freaking things. Last thing I got back, I seen you on, was I just got back from the car museum. It's the last thing. Oh, I missed all of this. Oh, I see. Wow. You did leave a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, the only thing I got in addition was to hold off sending Ventriloquorum and Mickey Mess the book until it's absolutely finalised. So he explained that it was over $1,000 for him to get a Spanish translation done in previous history with one of his books. I was like, oh, okay. So he's like, look, this is, it's a proper job. So if you're going to get them to do it, you don't want them having to do edits or anything. You just want them to do the translation if they're offering to do it, because that's going to cost them in their time. They're offering you something that's got a high dollar value if they were to charge you. So you shouldn't be getting them to do edits. Just give them it in a complete format once you've signed it off, which will hopefully by the end of this week. So by Friday, I'll be able to say to them, here you go, here's the finalised copy that will be the exact same in the English published version. Can you translate this? And then when I get it back, it'll just need formatting. I just need to tell him what document type to work in, which I did. Which he did. I asked him. I was like, what file type and size and text size should I get him to work in? It was like the file type is the only thing that matters, because he's got software that converts it into nice typefaces and spaces it in paragraphs nicely and things like that. He's already got software to do that. So it's only the document type that matters. But don't send them one that if you may make any edits to it, which there's still a mild chance between now and the end of the week, there might be a couple of things that need changing. So far, so good, there isn't. He was impressed with it, by the way. I asked him, because I was like, what do you think of it? And he's like, it's really good. It's going to make a really good addition to your channel. So I was pleased, because he hadn't given me any feedback. Because you're expecting to hear, oh no, I didn't like this chapter. It's a bit slow going, or it's not long enough, or it's not very well written, or whatever. You hope you won't get any negative feedback, but it was nothing but positive, which was great. And then everything else has been ancillary. Title pages is what I sent off to him today for the ebook, that is, and he wanted it in a widescreen resolution, which I was like, really? Is this the actual dimensions that you want? Because it was horizontal. Well, okay. So I just took the pixel count, whatever it was, 300 dpi and whatever it was, 1600 by 1100 or something like that. Like I say, a horizontal aspect, and just produced a cover with the title and my name on it, and then just sent it to him. So that was the most recent thing. But other than little things like that, there's been no amendments needed. I bloody hope not, actually. You know, the amount of times we went through it and drafted it and then subsequently checked it over, I would hope there wasn't any errors. But you just don't know until that moment where you're like, no, everybody's happy, everybody's signed off on it. It can now go to publication. The ebook is now ready. It does have a cover. It has been registered with the, whatever they call it, World Congress Library or whatever they call it. But that's all been done.
So a publisher said it sounds good. The book is good. That's good news.
Library of Congress.
That's the one.
Did the subtitle stay or go?
Yeah, we're going to keep the subtitle.
So it's measured flat, all roads lead to a flat earth?
Yes.
Okay.
Every time I get used to something, you change it.
I mean, there's always potential for things to be changed. No, I'm pretty certain of that. I think the title will stick as it is. Measured flat, all roads lead to a flat earth. All roads lead to flat earth.
I don't even think you needed that. That's measured flat. That's your trademark. But anyway, it'll still be fine. It's what's in the book that's important.
It's more for search engine optimization, actually. The extended subtitle is to optimize people who are searching for flat earth books. So because it says in the subtitle, all roads lead to flat earth, that will help search engine optimization.
I know a guy that named his flooring company A Flooring because that's the first one people will find back in the day when you looked up things in the yellow pages.
Yeah, well, that's all this is. It's a glorified example when you're doing search engine optimization. It's the same thing. When people go through the yellow pages, they're using a machine, the tool that produced the book, to find something. That's search. So it is by, a very crude equivalent. That's the optimization for that book when you search for a phone number for a particular job, for flooring in this case, right? Well, you want the same thing. If somebody's doing a search for flat earth books, you want them to at least find your book because they've typed that terminology in. Whereas if it's just measured flat, there's a reasonable chance that it'll slip through that search.
I see. I got it. But now that you have that all roads lead to flat earth, if somebody's searching it out, they'll find it. Okay. All right. I'm back on board.
Are you sure you don't want to use all roads lead to true earth?
Yeah, that's a quorum. Did you get any of the messages in Master B?
No, I'm good. I'm happy with the title.
Don't tell me you were too worth it.
No, I just thought that was hilarious.
I thought that was just sarcasm.
All right, so everything's in place. So we got something to look forward to. Well done. You got about, I don't know if Nathan told you, but you got 1 day to translate it in 5 different languages.
One day?
You up
One
for
day
it?
to what?
He said he's got one day to translate into 5 different languages. You up for it?
No, I mean, they'll come later. The translated versions, Spanish, French, and German, hopefully. I mean, it might just end up with just Spanish, but they'll come after the English versions officially signed off and finished. My haste, I'm suggesting getting them out while it's still in London. Wait till it's completely finished. I was already saying that with the audio. How is that? How's that? Work, right?
Are you walking around? Because you're fading in and out.
Yeah, I am, yeah.
We only got about half of that. It was like echoey, like you were in space or something.
How's it going with the sheep, Surf Daddy?
Going good. I just had to do stuff early today and out and about, and it makes it hard to listen, participate, and chat. So it's all good today. I will say, hey, I sent out yesterday's video because I'm famous now, and thank you. And sent it to some of my friends and asked for their opinions. And the first thing that happened was that when I sent it out through Facebook Messenger, over half of the people I sent it to about half dozen or so, didn't get the link. The link wouldn't show up. It was real weird. So I had to resend it. And a couple people already had a chance to listen to it and respond. And it's I think it's going to be good. I had one woman that I used to go to church with years ago. I think we both got kicked out for of the church for similar reasons, that we were asking why the pastor didn't believe Genesis was literal. Wouldn't talk about it. And she was interested in using this information, measured flat, to pass it on to people who she was trying to, I'll use the word evangelize. I think you guys know what I mean. Just basically help people open their eyes and show them the truth and look.
Convert them.
Huh? Convert, yeah. I guess it's not so much convert as it is to just show people, look, don't you see? It's like with the movie, what is it? They Live or whatever.
Yeah, put the glasses on.
Put the damn glasses on. Look, don't you see? And I mean, when the world gets to the point where really nobody sees and you've got the only glasses, I mean, that's how desperate you have to be to just connect with another person. Don't you see? I think what's where a lot of people who eventually came to Flat Earth through the conspiracies, the conspiracy trail, that's where they're at. You see all the lies, you see all this, and don't you see NASA's faking it, and don't you see this is, you get desperate for that. It's ironic to me that as a Christian, we're supposed to evangelize. We're supposed to spread the gospel. We're supposed to just tell the truth. And, don't you see? This is true. And it will help you with your life, It's ironic to me that we're supposed to do that, but we don't really. We get more excited about telling people about flat Earth than we do about spreading the gospel. That's kind of sad, ironic, and kind of weird to me. That's the thing that's my path. I was talking about yesterday, that I started basically showing people that they don't know anything without God. They have no knowledge without God giving them that knowledge. Look, his creation shows you that he is, right? And how can you not see that? Just doing that with apologetics, with atheists. I was the ninja. Don't you know the complexity of the eye? Don't you know seriously, think about this, guys. This is my path that has gotten, this is why I'm still here. Nathan, you're asking why I'm here. I'm still figuring it out, but it's becoming clearer that the reason I'm here is because I truly believe God has had me stick around and think about this stuff in the context of the ontological position that we must all either accept or deny the truth of. God created everything. That's how I was a flat earther before, anything. I just didn't know it, didn't care about it, didn't think about it. And because I knew God created everything, and the Bible pretty much lays it out. But people deny that truth. They will look at a scripture and say, God looks over the circle of the earth and go, well, that means it's a sphere. Just like Globers, measurement atheists will look at an elevation angle. Look, you just measure it. Here's your latitude. Look, you just measured an elevation angle from a flat earth. No, you didn't. That doesn't mean it's flat. There's refraction. There's blah, 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 blah. You just don't know what you're talking about. Geometry. You don't know geometry. They deny the truth. And that's frustrating. That's why, your frustration when you realize that everything's measured flat and people are still arguing the points and debating. That's no different than a Christian who comes to Christ and is saved, looks at other people who look at them, the change in their life, the truth that they've now been exposed to, because God gives us truth and knowledge. And they look at you and say, no, God doesn't exist, And they give all their reasons. They give all their Glober reasons for why they're an atheist. For why like God doesn't exist, right? Well, they're like anti-God. They're anti-Christ, just like anti-flat earthers are anti-flat earthers. They're anti-measurements. They're anti-looking at the truth.
You use that, you use the they live. I use it in a different way, the same thing, but I feel like they got to take the glasses off. Like, we've been put glasses on by a worldview, and once you take them off, now you can see the world for how God created it. So I use it in the opposite way.
Yeah, I mean that analogy still works. They're always go back to scripture, man. We're blind, but now we see, right? You put on the shades. You put on you put on the shades to hide from the light, right? You want to shade yourself from the light. You want to go in the caves to not see the light. There's so many analogies like that, but the main analogy, and it probably wasn't the right time yesterday, but I wanted to make sure and get it out today, later with you guys, but to just kind of chat about it. But the matter of if you've debated and discussed and talked about the gospel with full-blown atheists, all of their arguments
against the existence of measurements and the truth of a freaking horizon, or sea level. They're looking right at it, but they have their blinders on of the worldview that they just can't accept. Atheists and globers are the same. Atheists are anti-Christ. Globers are anti-measurements, or anti-reality, anti-truth. The measurements are the truth. In this case, of this very specific idea of just how we measure the earth. As from a Christian standpoint, and that's why I've been sticking around for years, and I've been on this journey, and I've been the ninja, and I realized I was doing the flat earth ninja stuff, just like I was doing the evidence-based apologetics for the Christian worldview. God is true because eyes are complex, and because fossils were laid down in a mud, in a deluge, and that proves that the flood was real, and all that evidence. Neil, you know all that too, I'm sure. But evidence-based apologetics is the debate and the not feast of nonsense stuff in Christian apologetics, just like refraction and all of the evidence-based, we've done laser tests, we've done this, and we're doing that, whatever, are the evidence-based position of flat earthers who can't just say the truth. This is why I write down a lot of stuff, because I'm just like all over the place. I don't know if I'm connecting or anything. But the analogy is so clear to me, and that is that's why I'm here. God's got me here literally to be a part of this for some reason, and I've told Neil several times.
Providence, baby, providence.
It is. It really is. And if you believe that that the Holy Spirit's talking to you and just giving you hints and prompts and just feelings sometimes, it's like, hey, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. All this, the whole time, here it is, the whole time that we're going through this journey, and we're finding out little by little that we've just been avoiding the truth the whole time, and arguing the feast of nonsense, all that stuff. The whole time we're going through this path, I was like going, this is just, this isn't something I can share. This isn't something that I can talk about. This is just going to be, it got me, I'm convinced. It wasn't directly, I wasn't told, oh, you're a flat earther, you get out of church. But I'm pretty sure that that's why I was asked to give the church a break. And leave. So, all of this path is providence. It's God just kept saying, well, stick around, ignore that. This is, just keep learning, just keep looking at things, and just keep thinking philosophically and deeply about what's going on here. This is the world that we're being brought into, and that's why we're here.
Do you believe that the reason why there's pastors and evangelists, right, all for the furtherance of the gospel of Jesus Christ, correct?
Say again.
The reason why we have pastors and evangelists is for the furtherance of the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? That's why they're here.
Well, pastors,
they're to lead a flock,
right.
But the main reason is they're here to exalt Christ, right? To bring people to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. All right, let's just say evangelists. Forget pastors. Pastors are for a certain group, a flock, and there are many pastors, but
right.
they all profess Christ. So
Yes.
I'm here for Nathan because I believe in the same way how God uses pastors, right, and evangelists to bring the message of Jesus. I believe that God is using Nathan to bring the message of the nature of our reality, of where we live. That felt this for the longest time. That
Yes.
God has a plan for Nathan. The plan is not, I mean, maybe he will. I don't know. Maybe he'll become a preacher and evangelist. I don't know. But I know what he's doing now. And I believe God is using him to bring the truth of Genesis because it's been clouded. Christians don't even know what Genesis is. They get to the point where they don't even think it's real, like it's literal. And we're saying it is, and we could demonstrate it because it's measured that way, the same way it is throughout the Bible. I could find many verses where it talks about measurement and line across the earth, and
Yeah. Face of the waters. God, the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters. Face. That's a geometry. Here I can hear Nathan every time I read Genesis. And everything was without form and dark, and God, Spirit hovered over the face of the waters. Ding, ding, ding.
Over.
Oh, over face. Face is a geometric term for a flat surface.
Exactly. That's why I'm here. Because I know God is using him for a greater plan than he even knows. And that's how it is most of the time. We don't even know how God is using us.
Well,
But,
God is using Nathan to inform me. I'll just keep it with me. But it sounds like what you're saying is the same thing. That to inform me of what is true, so that I can, when I'm speaking with fellow Christians who just refuse to believe that the first 6 days of Genesis are literally true, except for the things they want to believe, right? So that I can inform them. That's how God is using Nathan for me. How God is using Nathan in Nathan's case is irrelevant. Okay, and that's why I have no guru policy. What's cool. What's informed me of ways of debate, of thoughts, of rhetoric. Settle down, Neil.
you're losing credibility fast there.
Settle down, Neil. Down. Sit. Stay. I'm saying that God uses people, even bad people, to inform us. I saw that laugh, Len. Settle down. God uses everybody. Good and
what did God use Witsit for you? Tell me one thing where Witsit opened your eyes.
Okay, I won't say he opened my eyes. I will say that rhetorically, how he debated, how he addressed certain arguments. This is my ninja phase, dear. How he addressed arguments confidently and rhetorically was helpful for forming how I addressed arguments. Okay? Because I have a no guru policy and I don't respect the person.
And that's the problem.
I don't respect because I don't respect the person and put him on a freaking pedestal. I was able to use whatever information God was having me hear and listen to and watch to benefit how I would talk to, interact with, and debate at that time people on the subject of cosmology. Because
Witsit a straight up liar, though. He's a straight up liar.
Yeah, that's why I don't listen to him anymore, dude. And that's why I don't respect him. Nathan, God love him. But, I think he'd agree with me. I'm not putting him on a pedestal. He's going to disappoint me at some point. You're all going to.
I don't understand the pedestal you're talking about. Nobody's on a pedestal but Christ.
Yes.
But the information that comes forward, hold on, the information that comes forward, that comes from what Nathan puts out, is totally different. Witsit
it is
would
now.
baffle you. Hold
Wasn't
on.
then.
Witsit would baffle you with bullshit. I hated his debate style. Now, did he have a couple of points in his ramblings, speaking 100 miles an hour? Probably. But when you put his feet to the fire, he'll tell you it's more important to prove that the earth is not spinning than to demonstrate how it's measured.
Yes, and now I've seen a couple of things in my feed of old debates he had, because he's not debating it anymore. But in my feeds, people are doing shorts with him debating somebody here or there, and it's painful for me to watch. He would literally go through the like the Black Swan or something, and you can point to where it's like, damn it, just point out that it's straight, point out those are flat earth measurements. You're fucking done. But no, okay. I don't put any of that on a pedestal. I'm disappointed in him. I don't listen to him anymore. The stuff he's doing now obviously is not even close to cosmology and stuff like that. And he's just another, YouTuber whose subjects I don't watch anymore. I saw that coming before TFE happened. And I think God put Duffy in my life a year before TFE. There's friends I have that I made friends with, and we're discussing biblical cosmology and stuff like that. And gosh darn, it turns out that one of those friends is a personal friend with the wife or a cousin or something like that of Will Duffy. That's weird, right? And we've been discussing for 2 or more years flat Earth and stuff like that. And I talked about, the FED and stuff like that. One of my friends on the list is heavily into the biblical cosmology stuff and debating, or not debating, but trying to take apart Danny Faulkner's book. And we're discussing those. I'm helping her with editing her Substack posts and stuff like that. And, we were very involved in pre-Duffy stuff. And we saw months before it happened what was happening. He started making, him and Witsit and Jaron were having debates or discussions and stuff like that. Will Duffy is basically demonic. He is totally, yeah, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. And I knew that he was being controlled by McLovin. He was being controlled by McLovin from the very beginning, before TFE started. And that's how I knew when they started being kind of friends and discussing amicably the flat earth stuff, that when this TFE thing happened, that they were going to go along and they were going to be sucked in. And whatever they're in, man, spiritually, it is, it's a mess for all of them involved. Jaron is weak, I think, and that's why he caved quick. Witsit is a lot stronger spiritually, but he still is off of the.
Witsit denies that Jesus Christ is God.
Right. That's why.
Daddy.
Yeah, that's why. That's why he succumbed also, just as Jaron did, only he succumbed in a way that is saves him a little face. That's why he succumbed, because he's not strong in Christ. All right. That's why he even
You
went.
don't know Christ. You got to know someone to be strong in them. He's
Right.
never had a personal relationship with Jesus, because if you do, you have an intimacy with him and you know who you're intimate with.
Right. And
So
you know,
when he turns around and
right.
says after flat earth, all of a sudden that Jesus is not God, he's the Son of God, and this, that, and the other thing, and even went back to Hebrew roots and trying to keep the Sabbath. Listen, he never knew him.
No, he didn't. That's why he succumbed. That's why he even went. Like I said, I look at Duffy and watch him talk, and I don't think I've talked personally with him. I have had semi-personal conversations. I mean, he knows who I am. He knows my friend, because they're like, she knows his wife or cousin or something like that. They went to church or something like that. I know Duffy's spirit. I wouldn't even come close. That's why Whitsitt went, because he didn't discern what spiritual warfare was going on and how he was going to get caught up into it. That's why he was weak. That's why, he didn't know Christ enough. He wasn't talking to the Holy Spirit and going, this guy's just basically, so.
On that note, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Hit me up on PayPal, Patreon, all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken. We just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.